United, ready to fly. Batman and Robin, we took to the streets, chasing the shadows where justice meets. From Calgary to Ottawa, our fight never fades, taking down the villains in our own crusades. Whose streets? Our streets. Nazi scum off our streets. Southern Ontario, our battleground. Protests and rallies, the truth we found. Politicians, Antifa, our foes in the night. Gotham spirit in our hearts, the fight. Facing the darkness, we stood tall. In the name of justice, answering the call. With fire in our hearts, we took them down. In the streets of Canada, we wore the crown. Federal elections, the stakes were high. David Lynn's arrest, preaching in the sky. Church Street in the GTA, the scene was...
Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, grannies, gators, friends, family, prisoners, patriots, hostages, and all the otherwise too. It is Tuesday, November 4th, and you never know what you're going to get here. I say it all the time. This show is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, and that's because I never know what I'm going to bring you, and it's usually to a fault or to an extreme on the insanities and the crime, the corruption. But tonight's going to be no different. Around between more absurdities than than usual, I guess. So we're going to be a little bit disjointed. We're going to touch on a dodged election. We're going to hear some stuff on Chinada from Sam Cooper, and also a recent returnee. David Icke is back on YouTube, so I've got a clip from him there. We're going to be covering clones, but not like you think. Got some frontline feedback from the war in Ukraine. We're going to be talking about sacrifices, pedos, and Parliament too. So a little bit outside of the predictable fare of straight up corruption. There's going to be a bunch of just weird and odd and other absurdities that are circling in our orbit this week. So as usual, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. This show is not for the faint of heart. If you're new here, welcome to the community. We have a community, not an audience. I know that Shadow, I guess, has stopped streaming live on the social media platforms for a free audience. So we're getting a few folks that are coming over and finding us from Shadow's community. So welcome to ours. Don't worry, I'm never going to extort you guys for anything over here either. But as always, I want to encourage everybody to, whoever it is that you trust, who's authentic and genuine, and you can sense that they're not bullshitting you, support them, whoever that might be. We are in the greatest war in human history, completely unrestricted, and the information war is the tip of the spear of all of that. So if you want to help me keep going, and everything here is voluntary. Not hiding anything behind a paywall. There's nothing extra, but if you want to help keep me going, donate at whatsupcanada.org is the best way to do that. If you want to join the army, switchwithwayne.com is the dollar army, where we fight with our dollars, not just our words. And if you need to reach out to me, good, bad, or otherwise, contact at whatsupcanada.org is the best way to do that. And of course, everything that I do sooner or later makes its way to Substack. I did catch up a couple of Substacks. today. One went out this morning, one went out about 6 o'clock. I do have a couple more to catch up, so there's going to be a little bit of extra activity on Substack. So don't worry, don't fear. um it's it's just part and parcel for trying to keep up in Wayne's world, right? And for me, I encourage people to bookmark whatsupcanada.org. That is the only piece of real estate that I actually own, that I actually trust. You can join us over there, right there in a private studio chat over there. I've got built a chat just for us, a chat group over there. It's got all the basics, everything you need, without everything you don't need, which is Big Brother and censorship watching all over us. And you can get plugged in on Substack there, as well as with our partners over with Bryce over at New World Precious Metals, which is the QR code right above my head here. So I'm leaving that on here over the next little while, because we are in turbulent times, and if you can, you should have yourself a little bit of protection, I believe, with all my heart. And there's the link to the Switch with Wayne Army team over there. All right. So where are we going to get started? You guys know I like to try and start things off with a little bit of a giggle as to kind of set you all up for the insanity that is sure to follow, because I know that you triggering people and making them upset by exposing the crime, corruption, and abuse that is going on, that's the easy part. Finding something to laugh about is sometimes the harder part. So I try to find something to start the show off that I can at least give you guys a little bit of a giggle before we dig into the stinky, nasty swamp. And then at the ending and the close of the show, I find something that is a little bit more uplifting to kind of cleanse the palate a little bit. So I've got this funny little clip that I picked up today, and I thought it was appropriate on budget day. So we'll start with this before we get into the propaganda.
Ever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paper boy, evening TV. Everywhere you look, everywhere there's a heart, a hand to hold on to.
Why is the only Liberal plan to spend?
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal plan is to invest.
It is time to invest in the future of our country. It has never been more appropriate to invest in the future of our country.
That's why our economic plan, it is really at its heart about investing in Canadians.
That's what we're proposing to Canadian, generational investment in our future, Madam Speaker.
We're not spending that amount of money, we're investing that amount of money.
So a conservative commercial to kind of poke fun at the Liberal investment, but at the same time, today being National Budget Day, the votes are in, and the budget passed with 170 votes yay and 163 votes nay. So I guess the Christmas election appears to be off of the table. Right? So good, bad, or otherwise, to me, it's all fraud. It's all scam. It's all theatrics, semantics, a giant joke to keep us squabbling, disoriented, confused, and tribalized, right? So that's kind of the end of that. So I'm not going to I'm not going to spend any more time on the budget shit show because that's all it is, just a giant joke. And we're going to get directly into some propaganda and psyops. And if you're new here, my shows are notoriously long. This isn't going to be the longest show. It's not going to be a marathon, but um, I agree, Gene. It's all bullshit, right? My shows are notoriously long, but I try to provide some historical context, some comparison stuff, trying connecting dots because I don't want to come on here and just talk for the sake of talking. I don't do this for the clicks or the likes, although that is what helps me get this out past the gatekeepers. I do this to try and give people a place where they can find some clarity to make sense out of the absurdity, right? So this is oftentimes I'll bring history into the show, historical references. At the end of the day, I had somebody telling me this afternoon, that what they appreciated about my show was I'm not out here telling you exactly what to think. I just want you to think. And that's why I'm always looking for stuff that you're probably not going to see anywhere else. And yeah, so that's some of the kind of the unique things that I try to bring to the show here. So we're going to start with propaganda and psyops tonight, because we're going to see and hear some of that a little bit later on, of course. Okay, I'm going to read this for the people on the 4x2s because it's kind of short before it disappears. What is an education? Education is when you're taught what to think and how to think. Now, those that are able to remember and regurgitate what they've been told on command are considered to be well-educated people. But there's a big difference between being educated and being intelligent. Just because you believe what you've been taught doesn't make it true or right. Wisdom is knowledge. That means being wise enough to discern and judge which aspects of that knowledge, is true. Terry R. Eicher. And I couldn't agree more. And that's, kind of where we started yesterday's show off, with, the monologue on, the struggle that is real when you're an intelligent person, and all we get we're constantly dealing with people that are not intelligent, but they have an ability to regurgitate what they've been told on command. That's the hive, the Borg, that makes propaganda effective, and communism. That's it is the spine of communism and some of these other agendas that seek to destroy our countries, right? So, inherently, this has always been my mission, is to give people things to think about. We don't have to agree on everything, but what I bring here every night, Monday to Friday, is things that I'm thinking about, and things that are of interest, even if I don't always agree with them, and I don't always like the people that I'm playing the videos of, and I disagree with many different things, but these are the things that we need to just to understand what the threat to us actually is, and we're going to be covering some of those threats a little bit later on. So
a community rates low on an information scale when the press, radio, and other channels of communication are controlled by only a few people, and when citizens have to accept what they're told. In communities of this kind, despotism stands a good chance. See how a community trains its teachers. Bear this in mind. Young people cannot be trusted to form their own opinions. This business about open-mindedness is nonsense. It's a waste of time trying to teach students to think for themselves. It's our job to tell them. And when teachers put such training into practice, despotism stands a good chance. These children are being taught to accept uncritically whatever they're told. Questions are not encouraged.
How can you ask such a question? Have you got a textbook?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it say here that our law courts are always just?
Yes, ma'am.
Then how dare you question the fact? Sit down.
And so we aren't surprised when...
But it must be true. I saw it in this book, right here.
And if books and newspapers and the radio are efficiently controlled, the people will read and accept exactly what the few in control want them to. Government censorship is one form of control. A newspaper which breaks a government censorship rule can be suspended. It is also possible for newspapers and other forms of communication to be controlled by private interests.
$1958, folks. 1958. That's what, 67 years ago. We didn't get the memo, right? Because that despotism is exactly what we're dealing with today, with an entirely controlled environment. Nothing but gaslighting, propaganda, lies, abuse, and psychological terrorism waged upon our innocent and unsuspecting societies. PSYOPs. That's what PSYOPs are, right? Psychological operations. And our governments are number one at it, right? Yeah. So without getting into a side rant on that, I'll let Sean Ryan do that instead. Where I've got this clip, the horrifying endgame of modern PSYOPs.
Like we had talked about, we're not all that different. Like we had talked about the Nazi from World War II that they tried, and then the reporter said, you know, that the alarming thing or the scary thing is this guy isn't that much different than the rest of us. It's just 1 degree off. And so you only know what you're being fed. And we're all being fed different things through different algorithms, with different media channel that we're watching, or mainstream media that we're watching, news that we're watching. I think, you know, for me, what I hope people take out of this is that you're all fed a very particular narrative to tribalize the U.S. And they've done a very good job of that, whether it's social media, news stations, mainstream, whatever that is. And so I think that people that watch this, that pay attention, will start to realize that they're being fed tidbits of different information to trigger emotions and to hate another side of this country who may not think identical to you. But I think we all have a lot more in common than we realize. And I think this is a perfect way to kind of, in a bipartisan way, to dish out the information so that people understand what they're being fed is curated in a very particular manner. Hopefully people can see through some of the stuff and realize that we don't need to hate each other. We just need to talk to each other. And I think that's just something very important.
And now, an exclusive preview of Target Intelligence PSYOP, Chapter 1, The Zone.
In 1999, a book written by 2 Chinese military colonels was released in the United States. The book attempts to answer a question that China was openly contending with. How can they defeat an adversary that is technologically and militarily superior in a war? A country like the United States. The book's title, Unrestricted Warfare, reflects its central idea that when an enemy cannot be defeated by conventional military forces, warfare shifts to spreading social division and undermining trust and keeping institutions, essentially destroying the enemy from within. Here's what they write.
If one party is at war with another, and the other party does not realize it is at war, the party who knows it is at war almost always has the advantage and usually wins. And this is the strategy set forth in unrestricted warfare, waging a war on an adversary with methods so covert at first and seemingly so benign that the party being attacked does not realize it's being attacked.
In 1960, The Twilight Zone aired an episode in which the power and phone lines went out on a tree-lined suburban block called Maple Street. The neighbors gather outside to try to figure out what's going on, when a boy, obsessed with comic books, suggests his theory.
What do you mean, Tommy? What are you talking about?
They don't want us to leave. That's why they shut everything off.
What makes you say that? Where'd you get that idea?
Isn't that the craziest thing you've ever heard? It's always that way in every story I've ever read about a ship landing from outer space.
Not long after, one of the neighbors decides to walk a few blocks over to find out if the blackout is affecting them as well.
Well, he was just going over to the next block to see if the power was on.
As afternoon turns into night, the neighbors become increasingly suspicious of each other.
I know who the monster is!
Then, a figure is seen walking onto the street from the darkness. One of the neighbors, who has become increasingly paranoid, pulls out a
Shotgun? Would somebody think a thought around here? What good is a shotgun?
As the figure gets closer, the armed neighbor aims and pulls the trigger. As the group approaches, the figure that had been shot, they realize that they've killed the neighbor who was returning from a few blocks over. Moments later, the lights in the house of the man who fired the gun start flickering.
It's Pete Van Horn.
Pete Van Horn. Well, he was just going over to the next block to see if the power was on.
Charlie, you killed him.
I didn't know who he was. I most certainly didn't know who he was. We trying to protect my home? And know it was somebody we knew?
Soon, lights on the whole block begin flickering as the neighbors descend into violence, throwing stones at one another.
No!
Look! Charlie? Charlie, the lights just went on in your house. Why did the lights go on in your house?
No! No, it's nothing of the sort! I didn't know the lights on, I swear I didn't! Somebody's pulling a gag or something!
Before eventually focusing their rage on the boy.
I know who the monster is! I know who it is that doesn't belong among us! I swear I know who it is! All right, Charlie, let's hear it.
What are you waiting for?
Well, come on, Charlie, come on! Who is it, Charlie? Tell us! It's a kid!
He was the one who knew! How did he know? How could he have known?
Make how did you know, Tommy?
What's the matter with you people now? Stop!
In the closing scene, two men stand outside of a spaceship, looking down on the people of Maple Street, which is now in complete chaos.
Throw them into darkness for a few hours and then sit back and watch the pattern.
And this pattern is always the same?
With few variations. They pick the most dangerous enemy they can find, and it's themselves. All we need to do is sit back and watch.
Then I take it this place, this Maple Street, is not unique.
By no means. Their world is full of Maple Streets. And we'll go from one to the other and let them destroy themselves. One to the other. One to the other. One to the other.
The tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices, to be found only in the minds of men. For the record, prejudices can kill, and suspicion can destroy. And a thoughtless, frightened search for a scapegoat has a fallout all of its own. For the children, and the children yet unborn. And the pity of it is that these things cannot be confined to the Twilight Zone.
Isn't that exactly where we're at as a society, in our country? We are fighting with our own shadows, taking each other out, cannot find a single thing to agree upon, and the whole theory of unrestricted warfare. All that was done in old school fashion. The report on that was literally called Unrestricted Warfare, written in 1999 by a Chinese think tank, on how to wage war and win against the West. And here we are, 26 years later, basically living in Chinada 2.0 and doing exactly everything that they describe in that short little clip, right? And we're dealing with absolute utter absurdities, ghosts, spooks, shadows, and it's getting sketchy out there, folks. Tell me it isn't. Convince me I'm wrong, right? And everybody's got a scapegoat. Everybody is an expert. Everybody wants to tell us how to think, what to think about everybody else. And if you don't agree with them, well, then you are the bad guy. Or, like we heard yesterday, you're an overthinker, you're negative. I get it all the time, right? Welcome to my world, right? And I get it mostly from the quote unquote conservative right, that all think that they're on the right side of history, and they all think that they have the perfect solution, and they all think that they're heroes. And it's just absolutely mind boggling, the lack of critical thinking and the regurgitation of the propaganda that we have to deal with. And some of that propaganda and insanity and absurdity, and now we're going to get into some of that stuff. And yeah, this one's going to kind of mind a little bit. Toronto company Viagard Acumetrics tests your DNA to give you Indian status. So they'll test you and tell you you're an Indian, and you can go and get your treaty card. So when DNA samples from dogs were submitted, both results returned positive for indigenous ancestry. So you can literally go and submit your DNA from your dog to this company, and they will give you a treaty status, and now you've got legitimized permanent victimhood. Yeah, the hat's back. Got a headache already today, guys. Last night, by the end of the show, I didn't wear the hat. Eyes were popping out of my skull. I'm dealing with a headache again today, so hopefully the hat will help that out a little bit. But tell me that doesn't fit under the absurdity category. You and your dog can both get Indian status cards, and then you too can take part in the victimhood games of the victimhood Olympics, and you too can go and start laying land claims anywhere in the country from coast to coast. Did you guys hear that they're even, we're so tough up here that even now American Indian tribes are claiming lands up here in Canada. So when it comes to the Indians, there is no law, no border, no nothing that matters except the permanent victimhood. And meanwhile, we're continuing to slide. I got these backwards. Let me switch these up. I've got a couple of clips from Matt Cart. Yeah, while everybody's fighting for their permanent share, their share of the permanent victimhood status in the victimhood Olympics, the quality of life index in Canada has not fallen off the cliff. I would argue that it has jumped off of the cliff. And what was today's bill, budget bill? $78 billion again that the Liberals are going to quote slash invest slash spend to make the Liberal dream come true. So this is from Matt on the quality of life index in Canada. So if anybody was ever thinking about coming to Canada, don't do it. Don't do it. Run away, run away, run away. Like Sam was saying, head south, folks.
We have a nice entrance here.
This one-bedroom condo near Vancouver's UBC campus has been on the market for a few weeks. It's competing against thousands of new, never-been-lived-in units, with developers offering all the bells and whistles to try to sell them.
They're throwing in parking stalls, they're throwing in storage lockers, they're giving cash back on completion.
According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, there are about 2,500 completed, unabsorbed units sitting empty in Metro Vancouver, double the amount from a year ago. But that could be just the tip of the iceberg, because many don't get listed, creating what's known as a shadow inventory.
If you're watching this video and you're Canadian, you may have witnessed your standards of life and quality of life declining over the last decade or so, but you can't put your finger on why that is. From the financialization of the real estate market, low wages, cost of living on the rise, and not a lot of innovation for a country as big as Canada. We're going to discuss it in today's video. I thought this is a very interesting topic, and also we have one video only today to look at, but it really will put things into perspective based on the other stuff we're going to look at today as well, including some graphs that really show how bad quality of life in Canada has become. Now, I think it's important to do these videos as well because I'm not someone who always wants to think in a negative light, but I like to bring this stuff to people's attention because it's really important. If you do have a family here in Canada, you're probably worried for the future of your children. I know I am as well.
You like talking to Yeah. Having some conversations before bed?
And when your baby starts making sounds and when they become more cute, like Logan has been lately, it makes you realize more and more every day that this is a person that is going to inherit whatever is going to come from you and the country that you're living in. So that's why it's important to do videos like this, and hopefully you guys learn something from today's video. With that being said, let's dive into this video here. High price condos and real estate, but it looks like that bubble may finally be bursting.
We have a nice entrance here.
This one-bedroom condo near Vancouver's UBC campus has been on the market for a few weeks. It's competing against thousands of new, never-been-lived-in units, with developers offering all the bells and whistles to try to sell them.
They're throwing in parking stalls, they're throwing in storage lockers, they're giving cash back on completion.
According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, there are about 2,500 completed, unabsorbed units sitting empty in Metro Vancouver, double the amount from a year ago. But that could be just the tip of the iceberg, because many don't get listed, creating what's known as a shadow inventory.
And it's hard to tell exactly in, let's say, a 200-unit building, how many units are still available. Is it 50? Is it 100? Is it 150?
Some developers are now giving deposits back to buyers because they're not meeting pre-sale targets to secure bank financing for new projects.
There's also some developers that have actually gone into receivership because they had sold or tried to develop as the prices were escalating.
So what looked like a sure win on a spreadsheet turned sour as time ticked on. The industry says it's becoming more expensive to build due to higher construction costs, fees, and government taxes. Affordability, another major factor, with buyers wanting more for their money, and what's on the market isn't meeting expectations.
35% of all transactions are under $800,000. And let's be honest with ourselves. We're not talking that everybody who's spending that wants a 500 square foot condo or 450 square foot condo.
There are predictions of mass layoffs and a wider economic storm ahead.
I think the next 12 to 18 months are going to be very scary. I hope I'm wrong.
As the development market struggles, not every storyline is the same. Sales in the condo resale market are only down by about 5% year over year. Realtors say it's a buyer's market and there are deals to be had.
Deals to be had, but the real issue and the real crux of it is something that was actually pointed at the end of the video, where they said that not everyone wants to live in like a 500 square foot box, which is literally the majority of the inventory in Vancouver. The people who used to buy those type of units are fleeing. The investors are fleeing Canada. A lot of foreign money and a lot of just capital has fled Canada in the last few years. Reports of investor capital leaving Canada's overall economy has increased recently, with a $43.7 billion net portfolio outflow in Q2 2025 alone. This outflow is described as unprecedented and is seen as a sign of eroding investor confidence, potentially driven by perceptions of better returns and lower risks outside of Canada. So a lot of these investors want to put their capital in a place where they think they can grow their money, and they don't think they can grow their money that more in Canada. Why? Because wages wages are incredibly low as well. And we touched upon that earlier in the video. Canada, for a country that has expensive real estate, as expensive as it is in places like Vancouver and Canada, the wages just don't match up. And it really does feel like the housing market here is a bit of a Ponzi scheme leading to low quality of life, because if you're putting all of your money into...
It's not seeming like a Ponzi scheme. It is a giant Ponzi scheme, and it is ridiculously overpriced, and there are very good reasons why there are so many on the market. It's absolutely absurd. We're going to look at the quality of life in the cities next.
Housing, when you could be using that to spend into the economy, to grow the economy and help everyone out as well. It just feels like it's a vacuum just sucking up all that productivity. But there's data to prove that as well. Workers in every Canadian province earn less than workers in the US. And as you guys can see here, the blue, this is the poorest states in the United States. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama in there as well. These are based on low wages. Alberta is the highest in Canada's average wage is about $38,969, which is peanuts compared to even the prices of housing in Alberta, which is relatively a lot cheaper than places like BC and Ontario. BC though, you know, this is what we were just watching in the beginning of the video. The average wage is $37,801. So who's buying a 500 square foot little box in the sky that costs $800,000 when the average wages are $37,801? Roughly, they'd likely be renting that condo from an investor who purchases it for about $800,000. But those condos are not selling anymore for $800,000 because a lot of these investors have fled Canada, and a lot of them have taken their capital outside of the country where they see greener pastures. Ontario right here, still can't believe this, how expensive Ontario is, but the average wage is $36,749, which is literal peanuts compared to some of the prices for houses in Canada. Now, you're looking at these wages and you say, how do any of the people earning average wages actually afford a home in Canada? And the answer is they're probably not in the future. If it keeps going this way, I don't think a lot of people are going to own any property in Canada, to be honest, which is also a scary topic that we're not going to touch too much on today. We might leave that for another video. This is the 2013 Canada ranking here for Quality of Life Index, which is shocking how bad Canada has fallen from grace. 2013, just a little over a decade ago, it was ranked 5th in the world for quality of life. 5th in the entire world. Now, 2024 and 2025, it's ranked 33 in the world. And honestly, I think it might even be a little lower than that, if I'm being quite honest. But, you know, that just could be, you know, a knee-jerk reaction here. But as you guys can see, that is a gigantic fall from grace. Holy crap. And I can't believe all of this was done in just a little over a decade's time. Now, do you feel like the quality of life in Canada has declined? If you do believe so, or if you have some good evidence as well that you'd like to share in the comment section, please leave it down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
So there you guys have it. You know, we've gone, you know, and I don't disagree with that chart. 10 years ago, Canada was one of the best places on the planet to live. Top 5, right? Number 5. And in 10 years of Liberals, we have tanked to 33rd. Being optimistic, still 33rd, because I would argue that a good portion of the world still has no clarity of truth as to what Canada is truly like, what our cities are like, what our urban centers are like, what, you know, who the hell can survive on $37,000 a year, right? And think about this: the rate of inflation goes up more than 100% every 10 years. In 10 years, your wages don't go up 100%. You'll be lucky if they go up 4%. So if your wages are going up 4%, inflation is going up at 100% in 10 years, we are printing money like it's mad capital. Is it any wonder that the government, this particular Liberal regime, is looking at how they can balance their budget by culling 14.7 million of us to a savings of $1.37 trillion, right? This is the reality of where we're at in Canada. But what does that look like on the streets? Well, just before we get into why people people still support this. We'll look at what it is that they're actually supporting and what it is that we're actually living in.
Apartment, and there's a man with full frontal dick out. He totally saw me, then whipped it out, then starts peeing everywhere.
This will be the last time I will walk overtime again in this Canada. This will be the last time you guys will see me walk overtime again.
Nature is healing itself. We have developers complaining today about the number of unsold units in Vancouver, but I thought that was the whole point, right? Wasn't their argument that if you let us build condos everywhere, we'll have so many units that the prices will drop?
You know, Canadian cities feel almost unlivable right now. From the cost of living, the low wages for the prices of real estate, it doesn't really feel like a place that most people can afford to live. Not just afford to live, would you even want to live there, even if you could afford it? That's why there's also a lot of Canadians leaving the country. In 2025, it's the highest number of Canadians ever, and could get dramatically worse by the year. And there could be even more leaving by the end of the year. We're going to discuss it amongst a lot of topics in today's video because I've compiled a bunch of videos that reacted with you guys. So with that being said, let's first start about the wages in places like Toronto. Can you honestly afford to work for $15 an hour here? I mean, jeez, that is a Jollibee. I imagine that that's the minimum wage, and if that is the minimum wage, you're probably going to have multiple jobs and work overtime just to be able to afford a bedroom and a house. A bedroom with roommates. Who knows how old a lot of your roommates are going to be. If you are someone who's not in college, it never feels good to live with roommates, especially if you're in a city. It's very infantilizing, to say the least. But you know what else is depressing? The amount of jobs disappearing right now, like Scotiabank here, one of the biggest banks in Canada.
Scotiabank just laid off a bunch of people, and Nestea is also laying a bunch of people off too. AHS just laid off a bunch of people. This happened a while ago, but Imperial also laid off a bunch of people. So as a job seeker, me right now, it's not looking too hot if I'm going to be competing with all these people, especially considering that I'm a generalist. There's an irony of being jobless because, yeah, I want to upskill, but I don't have any money. So it's either YouTube for free or nothing in terms of like upskilling. But yeah, it's not a good time to be Canadian, Calgarian without a job. Calgary's getting colder and the job market is getting colder too. So I just had a bowl of Chinese beef noodles to warm my soul up. Good luck to Canadians.
Yeah, job market is pretty bad in Calgary. I think Calgary's unemployment rate right now is close to 8%. Not the highest in the entire country, but it's definitely up there. And there's a lot more people looking for work. Will they find it by the end of the year? Christmas is coming up and it's seasonal, so maybe there'll be some temporary work to kind of hold people over. But really, when it comes to full-time employment, a lot of companies are not hiring because of the uncertainty right now in the economy. Now, Toronto, Canadians can't pay rent. Now we're living in trailers in Walmart parking lots. And this isn't just Toronto. This is one video in Toronto. I've seen this here as well in Calgary. It is pretty depressing to see. But again, if you can't afford rent, because
it's everywhere. The homeless encampments and the people that are living in their RVs and vehicles, that's not including the ones that are living in tent cities. I've seen tent cities with my own eyes driving through some of the cities where there is 1,000 tents. They are that freaking huge. It's criminal. It's criminal. We should have the highest, richest quality of life on the freaking planet, but no. This is what people are forced to do to survive. 4 million of them are on the food in line at the food banks, and how many of them are made line up because it's the only way they have to get out. And they're not, suicide isn't really their jam, but they're being sold that it's okay for the government to do it.
the rent prices are so expensive. What are you going to do? Are you going to live on the streets? If you can afford to at least put some money together for a trailer, even if it's a small trailer, you'd probably rather do that. You just have to watch out for permits and stuff because, you know, there could be police trying to remove you, just like they remove a lot of the tent encampments in big parks like Trinity Bellwoods.
Bus drivers leaving passengers and then casually taking breaks at random stops.
Yeah, this happens quite a lot. Apparently, the reason why this happens is because they have a certain schedule to apply to, and if you get there too early, like to the station too early, can cause havoc. So sometimes they are forced to take these breaks. Apparently, I don't know, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just lazy and they just want to take as many breaks to look at their phone as possible. I don't know. but that's what I've been told before by people who work at the TAC. Now, Toronto, just letting prisoners walk free average day in downtown Toronto. I'm not sure if this person is a prisoner. Maybe that's just their Halloween costume, or maybe they actually are on like parole or something. I don't know, but they're wearing the classic orange jumpsuit. I'd be a little bit worried if I was in Toronto and I saw that. If there's no one, I'd be first thinking, oh, they're filming a scene for a show down here, looking around. Well, there actually is no camera crew here, so maybe that is actually an ex-convict.
This will be the last time I will walk overtime again in this Canada. This will be the last time you guys will see me walk overtime again. I just got my paycheck today, and what I'm seeing is not encouraging at all. I worked overtime. I worked Saturdays, I worked Sundays. Overtime, back to back, 10 to 10 p.m. shifts every day. And this is what you guys give me. Last month's pay that I didn't even work overtime, I missed some days, is better than this month's pay. I just don't know. Somebody explain it to me. Is it that the more you work, the less they pay you and the more tax they deduct for?
That is the Canadian lesson. 100%. The more you work, the more they take, unless you end up having. But they'll be happy to subsidize you if you're not working, especially if you have a funky accent from somewhere else.
Me, or because I don't get this. I want to go on a date with this girl, but how will I explain to this girl that I don't have the money for the date? I don't even know if working hard is the way. I don't know if working hard is the way now, because with what I'm seeing here, the only date this money can afford, it's pizza. I mean, if she loved me, she have to love me for who I am.
Well, that took a little bit of a turn at the end there, a little bit of a twist, but yeah, I mean, that shouldn't just be your sole reason for trying to work hard is to go on dates and spend money on dates or anything like that, but hey, you do whatever you want to do. I do agree, though, that overtime is a killer here in Canada. I remember my first overtime check. I used to work at a place called the Beer Store. A lot of them are closing down in Ontario now, but one of my first jobs was at the Beer Store, and I remember checking out my paycheck after working a lot of overtime in 1 week, and I was shocked at the amount. It was like, why would I even put in all these extra hours if they're just going to take more and more out of my pay? It was ridiculous, and honestly, a lot of people who happen to work overtime probably have that same feeling that he had when he looked at his check. It's not very fun.
Nature is healing itself. We have developers complaining today about the number of unsold units in Vancouver, but I thought that was the whole point, right? Wasn't their argument that if you let us build condos everywhere, we'll have so many units that the prices will drop? But the problem is they didn't build anything anyone actually wants to live in. People spending $800,000 for a condo don't want a 450 square foot condo. Absolute shocker. They want to get double or triple the square footage for that amount of money. The developer said that he thinks some developers have put in too many eggs into the investor basket. Oh, really? I thought you were saying for the last few decades that foreign investors have nothing to do with it, when in reality, turns out they were your entire customer base. And right now, a lot of condos are coming online that people don't really want to live in. What, you're telling me people don't want to spend millions of dollars to live in a condo where you can't even properly put a TV on the wall? Or that you have no walls to actually show off your art and create a unique style? Oh, and your bedroom is in a fishbowl in the middle of the living room? What prince are you trying to market this gaudy shit to? That's from a listing in this awful building that's been sitting on the market for 150 days. So my question is it not time to remove the exemption for the empty homes tax and the speculation tax on new units? Because we've proven time and time again, building more units doesn't lead to affordability. They'd rather just keep them empty than sell them at lower prices. So we should just be forcing them. Right? Let's end the empty home tax. They should have to either rent those units out, the thousands of units that are just sitting there empty, or reduce their cost and have an incentive to reduce the price.
That's the scheme in Toronto that Chris Sky ran a campaign on, was trying to end that scam in Toronto as well. But I'm going to interrupt here with this, where dude there was just mentioning, who are they marketing to? A Saudi prince? Well, maybe it's the family of the one the Sings that they put on the new Remembrance Day stamp, and got the worm tongue noodle language on there as well. So English, French, and noodle is what we are supposed to remember for Remembrance Day this year. No thanks, I've got my poppy. I don't need to remember Mr. Noodles dude there. But yeah, who are they trying to rent to? They certainly don't want John Q natural Canadian living in them, or anybody else that's working, because if you're working, you can't afford them. It's interesting. So many folks in the chat, talking about living on between $25,000 and $35,000 a year. And knowing that the newcomers get $82,000 a year, and they're the ones that are represented on our Remembrance Day stamp. That's how much Canada loves you, folks.
To actually make them more affordable, because that was their argument, right? When they wanted to knock down a 10 unit affordable building and build 80 units of luxury housing, they said, oh, but we're going to build so many units that rents and prices will come down. Well, clearly that's not happening, right? So we need to get rid of these exemptions. Stories like this are just laying the groundwork for them to advocate for getting rid of the speculation and vacancy tax, the empty homes tax, the foreign buyer tax, but we can't let them. We have to hold the line here. Correcting the market so it's aligned for Canadians is going to be painful. It's going to take time, but we have to stay the course.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time for the prices to truly crash to something that people should be able to afford, especially if you're building these one unit, apartments and condos that are usually meant for students, right? If you're a student or a bachelor, you probably don't have that much disposable income. So honestly, if I'm being completely transparent, those units that are $800,000, in reality, they should probably cost probably closer to $200,000 if we're in an honest, fair market. But will they ever go down to $200,000? I don't think so.
We are open for business. Oh, okay, let me try. Here in Hamilton, Ontario, we are open for business with great opportunity. That one's boarded up too. Oh, that is fucked. Here in Hamilton, Ontario, we're open for business. Okay, that's condemned.
Yeah, that's what happens in a city when the prices of rent have went up substantially because all the people from Toronto are trying to get out, and it's not their fault. They want to escape the hellhole which is Toronto right now when it comes to affordability, and they try to move to Hamilton, and of course that gentrifies the area, raises the rent prices, and a lot of these establishments and stores can't afford to actually open their doors and keep their doors open.
Apartment, and there's a man with full frontal dick out. He totally saw me, then whipped it out, then starts peeing everywhere. On my way to get a tetanus shot from the dog that bit me on Hastings yesterday. While I'm at the pharmacy, I see people smoking crack everywhere outside. You see more people smoking crack than you do cigarettes here. It's insane. And this is the only city, I swear to God, I have to carry some sort of spray. I don't trust anyone here. I don't feel this way in any other city, in any other country that I travel to. I stopped filming, but then I almost got hit by a taxi crossing the street when I had the right of way. Basically, my point is we need to stop normalizing this behavior. I'm so sick of it. It's not tolerated in other cities and other countries. I don't know why we allow it to happen in Vancouver. Vancouver could be so beautiful.
Well, I mean, it is technically beautiful from like the landscape, but yeah, it was probably a lot more beautiful back then when Hastings Avenue was not just a drug-infested hellhole, but the city in general right now is definitely falling under. She started this video by saying a guy outside of her condo or apartment was just there on the street, full frontal nudity with his dick out and everything, and that's not really good to see, especially if you have children, there's families walking around, you see a dude just naked with his wiener hanging out. Probably not good. Definitely a reason to leave the city if you can afford if you can escape places like Ontario and BC, probably should do it. Let's react to some comments now on a previous video relating to this very video's subject. Let's start off with the first one here. Everywhere has gone downhill. I live in the west side of Vancouver and saw a tent pop up on the Arbutus Greenway. It was there for 2 days. I was shocked, but it is gone. Okay, so interesting. That's an area you probably wouldn't expect to see a tent pop up, but you know, in Toronto, my God, in the summertime, the amount of tent encampments that would pop up in, you know, parks around the city was just ungodly. There's just an ungodly amount of tents. I lived in Toronto for 12 to 14 years or so, left Toronto last November. I left around 2.5 years, a little over 2.5 years, and I don't know. The only thing that would ever get me to go back, and I don't think I'll ever go back, but it would have to be real estate crashing by like 70 to 80%. And, you know, getting closer to my friends and family there, but I just don't see that ever happening. So as of right now, I'm very happy to be out of that city.
Don't close your eyes, dude. We've got a story coming up about that a little bit later on here.
Next comment here, I left Toronto back in 2011 and never looked back. It was way better back in the day. I'm 45 years old now and grew up there. Oh, 100%. Even in 2011, it was actually still pretty decent. I think the big shift from me and my perspective, at least this might be a little anecdotal, but it was definitely around 2015 is where I noticed the city started to go downhill. And a lot of people will even argue that Canada started to go downhill around that time as well. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, please.
Imagine that 2015 started going sideways. What else happened in 2015? Oh yeah, we got the Trudeau cancer, right? And I'm gonna pull this up just again with a comment here. And Nikki, I want to thank you for your service. I know you didn't serve for this bullshit. And, you know, I'm sure on behalf of the community here, nobody will argue with me for saying that I'm sorry that you're being disrespected in this way. Because, I mean, you know, last night, this is what I was referring to. Last night, covered it. I went and did the math myself, the research on it. 130,000 Canadians have died in conflicts around the world and the, you know, through all the world wars and stuff. And yes, there were some Indians that died in there, in those too. I haven't done a breakdown on that, but I know for full well certain that it is such a minute single digit percentage of Indians that died serving in Canada. And that to me is just an absolute slap in the face. Just another one of those absurdities that our government thinks is freaking normal, right? So Blender News is trying to answer why people still support the Liberals. And granted, this video is from yesterday, so he didn't know about the budget being passed yet, but should come as no surprise that the budget was passed anyways.
Get a federal election for Christmas.
Oh, let me rewind that. He says we might get...
It's looking like Canadians could get a federal election.
If the Conservatives had, you know, actually done something about it, maybe there would be. And not saying that an election is good, bad, or otherwise, but I think everybody was kind of expecting Pierre's and the Conservatives to reject it. But it looks like at least some of them accepted it. And even Pierre on CBC the other day had said, why not accept the budget? Because the money is already spent anyways. They've already spent the money. The year is almost over.
For Christmas. With this in mind, I often...
So Pierre was trying to save us from a costly election because it wouldn't make any difference about the money. The Liberals already spent the money. That's why Pierre was defending the budget, or saying that it would be useless to block it to save us from an election. What would you guys rather have? For me, I look at not having an election. That means Bill C2, 5, 8, 9, all of the 12 that we covered last night. That means they're still on the table, still proceeding, and UBI is in the second reading in the Senate. So by not having an election, all of those things, that trajectory that the Liberals are they're doing, that they've spent the money on, is carrying on business as usual now in Ottawa.
Get asked, how could any self-respecting person still support the Liberal Party? The answer is simple. Self-respecting people are exceedingly rare. After years
Bingo.
of relentless propaganda, many have been taught to hate their own nation, its history, and even their ancestors. They've been conditioned to view patriotism as bigotry and self-preservation as selfishness. So it's not surprising that a large share of the population clings to a political class that feeds them moral validation while robbing them blind. Roughly 20 to 30% of society has gone completely mad, but it's not random. It's psychological self-defense. If you spent nearly a decade believing anyone to the right of socialism is a fascist, how could you ever admit you were wrong? To do so would mean acknowledging that you maligned half the country, friends, coworkers, family as irredeemably evil. It would mean accepting that you weren't the righteous one, you were the persecutor. Most people's egos can't bear that level of self-awareness, so they double down. That's why so many can complain about the cost of living, the housing crisis, and collapsing healthcare, while still voting for the very people who caused it. Cognitive dissonance keeps them loyal. To protect their self-image, they must rationalize every failure as someone else's fault. Conservatives, racists, misinformation, anything but themselves. The same psychology explains why some will never abandon gender ideology. If you once cheered for the chemical castration and mutilation of children, if you smeared those who tried to protect kids as hateful bigots, how can you ever admit that you were wrong? The moral weight of that realization would crush you. So instead, they must forever live in denial, rationalizing their role in something unspeakably cruel. The tragedy is that this madness isn't innate, it's learned. Years of state-funded media, institutional indoctrination, and social conformity have created a population terrified of admitting error. This is until Canadians rediscover both truth and self-respect, the insanity will only deepen.
That's exactly what we covered last night. The shame and guilt is the endless tailspin of death in our country, to the point where we have this utter silence that the government hears as consent. The self-respecting are silenced. Those that, the rare as a dodo bird and that does self-respect, our community, and this is why they're threatened by it. We have enough self-respect to be trying to fight all of this, but it's just incessant. So once they've agreed, now they're trapped in that guilt and shame, and now they're literally giving away not just all of our money, but all of our land, our entire country, right, to anybody that lays claim to it. While they're, this little refresher of the money that they're giving away to African Development Bank, $118 million, Asian Development Bank, $30 million, Caribbean Development Bank, $20 million, Rome, $25 million, Nairobi, $10 million, World Bank DC, $132 million, almost $133 million. Why is Canada giving the World Bank of USA $133 million? To the UN, $3.5 million. UN Biodiversity, another $1.5 million. Singapore, $600,000. Nairobi, $208,000. Chinada, some Islamic third world shithole, another $100,000. It's just absolute absurdity. Everything about this country is absolute absurdity. And we're in a situation where this is from Brian Lilly, who says Canadian unity faces moment of truth. I think that is the most understated statement that Brian Lilly has ever uttered. It is shattered. There is no such thing as Canadian unity left anymore at this point. When I look around this country and how many people actually have the guts to stand up against the slaughter of 14.7 million people, it's a very small group of people. If we can't be united on the fact alone that is wrong, dollars and cents, pennies, are going to provide us unity? I don't think so. I think Mr. Blender was right. It cannot fix itself. What do we need to do to stop it? I think we need to shut it all down. We need to literally shut it all down, split it up, seat new legitimate governments with a clean slate, let the criminals own the debt that they're creating, the crime syndicates masquerading as government, and all of the agencies that provide the plausibility and the plausible deniability to maintain this continuity of the crime syndicate. That is the sole purpose of the entire system. It's not broken, folks. It's working exactly as designed. The entire system is working as designed, and the syndicates are getting richer, and Canadians are ending up begging for death at the hands of a white lab coat. But we'll see how Brian Lilly sees a solution.
Our major national political parties understand that this is their John A. Macdonald moment, and these are the kinds of things that they have to confront. And Eby gets half a glass. Daniel Smith gets half a glass. Lesage, in Quebec, he gets half a glass. Everybody gets that because we believe this country is worth holding together. Because if it doesn't, it is a very fragile place. It is a very fragile place.
I also don't want us to get incredibly hung up on regional divisions and only regional divisions, because one of the key elements of Breaking Point is that it's not just about Alberta versus Quebec or Central Canada versus the regions. It's also about the great cleavages between millennials and Gen Xers, millennials and Gen Zs, who believe that
nobody talks about Gen Xers. Like, John,
yeah, I know.
Stop. We are the forgotten people.
Versus older folks like us. There was a poll that Daryl's Ipsos did that shows a very large minority of people, I think it was under the age of 40, would support annexation to the United States if the terms were good enough. And that reflects not a real division among younger people, between younger people and older people, with the younger people feeling we're the first generation that's not going to get what our parents got. We're not going to be able to get a house. But I don't even know what a defined benefit pension plan is. I'm not going to be able to get a secure job. None of these things are available to me, and it's I feel angry, especially if younger men feel angry and dispossessed towards older people. And I believe that the intergenerational tensions in this country are easily as serious as the regional tensions, and need to be urgently addressed.
And so I'd like to hear from both of you on this. I think that an awful lot of people in our political class in this country dismiss both the Western separation movement, or not movement, but sentiment, because I'm not sure it is a movement yet, but there's a sentiment. And I travel a lot in Saskatchewan and Alberta, and I hear it. And I think that people in Central Canada, Eastern Canada, just dismiss it. But I also believe that an awful lot of the political class dismiss what you were just talking about, John, which is the generational divide and well, it's not working for me. And I am Gen X. We are like the forgotten generation. People even forget to even mention us, that we exist. It's boomers to millennials to Gen Z. Who are these guys in the middle? Nobody knows. But the anger and the anxiety among millennials and Gen Z over the fact that Canada did not provide what they promised, I think is very real and dismissed far too often. So which of the two is one of them greater than the other in terms of the ability to fracture the country? Because I feel like we could be at a fracture point. Mark Carney likes to talk about hinge moments. Rupture. I'm worried about fracture and rupture more than hinge.
So it's the breaking point is not just horizontal and vertical. It's also three-dimensional, including time. And it's the recognition that both you and John have and pointing out what you both pointed out, that this idea of the Canadian promise, this idea that one generation improves to the next generation, improves to the next generation.
Not anymore. That isn't the Canadian promise. We can't even get a promise to life in Canada anymore.
Is something that's really lacking credibility for a lot of Canadians right now, and it's something that if Canada can't promise it, maybe another place can promise it. That becomes a bit of makes this wider than just these regional tensions that we've had or that we're currently discussing. But they're all of a piece. They're all about talking about how this country will work and why it's to our advantage to be together as one, and that's across generations, across different identity groups, Indigenous, non-Indigenous Canadians, and people from coast to coast to coast. Why we constitute a unique species on the North American continent, and we're better this way. And that challenge of political leadership is the real question of whether or not we have anybody anywhere in this country who can really stand up and represent that and create the rallying among our nation, among all generations, regardless of where you come from, whether you're new Canadian or your family has been here for 250 years, or whether you're somebody from the Indigenous community or whatever. That this is something that we want to preserve. And at the moment, it's difficult to see where that's going to come from.
Anybody see it out there anywhere? Anywhere? Anybody, folks? I see it in the independence movements, the efforts to reclaim the rights to their own future self-determination, which is from the highest jurisdiction on the planet, absolutely our rights to do. But again, that's a whole other question. And tonight, I'm going to try and stick to absurdities. And the next one is from it's his name, Carl Vernon. Again, where you guys are going to love this before we get into the next two stories that are going to make you probably want to toss up your suppers. And I apologize for that. In about 3 minutes, if you're eating, you're probably going to want to stop. But first, Carl Vernon saying, "Get effed."
Just when you thought the shopping experience couldn't get any worse. I'm off on my way to Tesco. Do. Back to the island. What island? AI. Surveillanced islands. Delicious. Not only do I have to pay through the frickin' roof for any sort of food products nowadays. I know, look, I'm trying to get some balance here. I tell you, we did it to ourselves. We did it through safety and convenience, which are the buzzwords, what they love. Because when they've got us by the cojones with the safeties and the conveniences, this is basically what they throw at us as a service. They think that this is acceptable, that the AI surveillance, whatever the frig this stuff is acceptable. And now you got this stuff too.
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. No. It's never, ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No. I don't think so. No. It's never, ever gonna happen.
Back to the Tesco. I just wait my trolley like some dystopian nightmare. I'm not using that. Okay, I'm not using that. You're pushing it too far. Okay, I think actually there's a lot of people. I was going to say most people, but I think there's a high proportion of people that are just going to say, niche. I'm not having it. All right, you're going too far. I get that there's the convenience, and thank you for giving us the option of all of that lovely food on the aisles that's totally edible and safe. Thanks for all that convenience that actually I do pay through the frickin' roof for anyway. Thanks for that. But this level of dystopian nightmare, no, no, thank you. In fact, it's already happened. You remember the Amazon, what were they called, like the walk-in type store, mostly in London. It was, you walk in unstaffed, wasn't it? It's like Amazon grocery stores. I don't know what it was called, but it basically failed, didn't it? Yeah. These dystopian stores that track you on the cameras. You just put whatever you want in a basket and walk out, and everybody's going to love that. No, it failed. It failed miserably. Yeah. People didn't want it, and therefore it was a niche, and it's gone. People want to be able to have the option of Kashish, or a percentage of people want that option. They might not like the small talk, but no human interaction. What am I actually paying for? You want me to pay for the roof for the actual food, and you want me to pack the freaking goods and take them out too? You're absolutely taking the piss, boy. And it failed miserably. So putting this sort of stuff in really ain't going to help. What do you think, Tata?
So what do I think? I think those of us that object and resist are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. And I think it is becoming so much more normalized for the youth. They don't see anything wrong with it because it's normal to them. You know, when you think about it, and then this is one of the things that separates us as a society. If you were born after 1982, you can't even comprehend or imagine a world that to exist without cell phones, computers, and the internet. It's been there your entire life. All of this is normal. All of this is cool. They don't know any different. Those are the people that run and rule the world because we're all gone. And here in Canada, they've eliminated us, and they've replaced, our entire food chain with something even more absurd. Did you guys catch this? A shocking new low in surreptitiously modifying our food supply. Canada quietly clears cloned meat from cattle and swine to be sold as of November this year. So if you go to the store and you get beef or pork, it might actually be a clone, right? Fewer than 1,200 individuals and organizations were directly notified, and the results were not widely publicized. Yet the change has quietly taken effect. And what is that going to do? How are they going to do that? How are they going to normalize that? That will be the cheapest meat in the store. It will be cloned. It will be a freak of nature. It will be modified in who knows how many capacities. But that's going to be normal. We're going to be so busy looking at all of the AI surveillance and all of the tech and garbage and gobbledygook. Are people even going to notice? I don't eat a lot of meat because I can't afford to anymore. I would be a meatitarian, but I don't trust the crap in the stores. Already I didn't trust them, and now cloned meat sales. This is a little bit of a thread on the same story. No labeling, no knowledge. Meat from cloned cattle and pigs can be sold without special labels. They don't even have to tell you, treating it the same as conventionally bred meat. Foods derived from clones of other animals, such as goats and sheep, are still regulated as novel foods. The decision follows international safety assessments, of course, because we all trust those, right? And a 2024 consultation that involved fewer than 1,200 individuals and organizations that was not widely published. The lack of transparency could damage consumer trust. Gee, you think? Even as cloning offers farmers faster breeding, higher productivity, and lower costs, ethical concerns and consumer ick factor remain. The government is not requiring labels, leaving shoppers largely in the dark. How many folks are going to go and make sure that they are not getting cloned meats in their stores? The ones you regularly shop at. And then the question is going to be, do the stores even know if they are selling you these freaks of science, right? This to me is absolutely. I said I was gonna, your dinner was in danger if you were still eating. This is the level of absurdity that Canada is, and to me, obfuscation, hiding the truth, is no different than a lie. They're literally building the matrix around us and off those who just ain't happy about it, or don't fit in, or don't out-generate their cost to society, right? So now we're going to take a slight little shift, to where Matt was talking about, he left Ontario for BC and didn't see himself going back or leaving BC unless there was a major housing crisis. And remember, I interrupted then and I said, careful what you put out into the universe, Matt, because we've got this press release from British Columbia.
Folks, we're in the midst of a housing crisis, not only in this province, but throughout Canada.
Something is happening in Surrey that nobody in...
You don't say. A housing crisis. Who could ever have predicted that? I mean, we've only talked about this 1,000 times, and that this was coming in the last year in 1,000 different ways. So who could have predicted that?
British Columbia wanted to believe was possible. A housing market that was once talked about as unstoppable, inevitable, permanently rising, has now hit a wall so hard that the echo is being felt all the way from City Hall to the Premier's office.
Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, Colin, guess what? We're going to build homes.
The cranes that once symbolized growth are standing still. The sales centers that once promised a new life are locked. And families who believed they were stepping into their future are now realizing they may have stepped into a trap instead.
Think about the couple who just had their first kid and don't know if they can afford to upgrade from their one-bedroom condo.
This is not a rumor. This is not online fear-mongering. This is not speculation. This is happening right now, in real time, and it is changing everything. Surrey was supposed to be the next great urban core of Western Canada. A city of new towers, new transit lines, new density, new opportunity. The advertisement showed glass skylines shining in the sun, young families strolling modern plazas, offices, retail, community, a future unfolding. And for a moment, it really looked like that future was already on its way.
Exact words is, don't stop, keep fighting for Canada. That was the message I got from all the premiers that I spoke to.
Everyone, if we don't buy now, we'll never get another chance. That belief became the fuel for the entire market. Everyone acted like rising prices were guaranteed. Everyone behaved like growth was a law of nature. And then the music stopped. The project that revealed the truth was District Northwest, the development right next to Surrey Central Station that was supposed to reshape the entire neighborhood. More than 1,000 homes were promised. Nearly all of them sold. Families handed over deposits that represented every part of their financial future savings, loans from relatives, years of hard work. The site was cleared, the marketing was done. The plans were approved. The skyline renderings were already printed, but construction never began. The land sat untouched while months passed. The public didn't know it yet, but in the background, money was draining out of the project like water through a hole in a bucket. The lender said the developer owed more than $85 million. Interest was piling up at over $30,000 a day. Not a week, not a month, a day. A building that did not exist was already costing more than most families earn in a year. And then came the shock that made everything clear. The project was placed into receivership. When that happened, something cracked open in the public imagination. This wasn't delayed, it wasn't slow, it wasn't postponed, it was stopped.
Because of these conditions and general market uncertainty, we have seen the housing market come to a standstill.
The buyers who had believed they were building their future were told their deposits were safe because they were held in trust. But safe didn't mean accessible. Safe didn't mean refunded. Safe didn't mean they could now buy something else. Safe meant frozen. It meant waiting. It meant uncertainty with no timeline, no clarity, and no guarantee that the project would restart or that the money would come back soon.
Many buyers didn't even know what questions to ask because no one tells you what to do when the system itself fails. People thought this was an isolated collapse, one unlucky project, one developer who miscalculated, one accident in an otherwise strong market. But then Burnaby's Highline project started to show the same signs. Then Minoru Square in Richmond. 3 major projects by the same developer either in or approaching receivership, representing over $300 million in debt. And behind those debts are real people, drywall workers who went unpaid, crane operators who couldn't collect outstanding invoices, real estate agents owed commissions, marketing firms cutting staff just to stay alive.
Good job, Premier. Ontarians are paying with their jobs for what you just did.
The impact flowed outward like shockwaves. And when the shockwaves hit the broader market, they exposed something that had been building underneath the surface for years. The cost of building new homes had risen so fast, and financing had tightened so sharply, that developers could no longer make the numbers work. Interest rates rose, construction materials increased, labor shortages increased, costs even further, and government fees were layered on top of everything. The models that once generated profits were now generating losses. And in a pre-sale system, once the math breaks, everything breaks. While everyone was watching prices, something far more important was happening quietly in the background. The construction pipeline died. Surrey issued more than 6,000 permits last year. This year, just over half of that, housing starts are down more than 75%. The city that was supposed to grow faster than anywhere else in Canada is now barely growing at all, not because the demand disappeared, but because the ability to supply housing collapsed. And when supply collapses during a downturn, you're not fixing affordability, you're planting the seeds of the next housing shortage. This is where Surrey stands now, in a standstill that helps no one. Prices are falling, but homes are not becoming affordable. Sales are slowing, but rent is not getting cheaper. Buyers are waiting, but sellers can't adjust. Developers are frozen. Lenders are cautious. Families are stuck. Workers are at risk. And the government is trying to solve a crisis using tools designed for a very different market. This is where we enter the human side of the story. The couple who saved for years to place a deposit is now paying rent again, unable to move forward. The homeowner facing mortgage renewal is calculating payments again and again, searching for a version of the numbers where they don't drown. The tradesworker is wondering if the company they work for will make it to next spring. The realtor is watching listings sit longer and longer, knowing that confidence is evaporating faster than prices. Confidence is the first thing to leave a market and the last thing to return. And confidence has left Surrey. The collapse is real. The freeze is real. The fear is real. And this is only the beginning. When confidence breaks, the market doesn't fall in a straight line. It stalls. It hesitates. It goes quiet. And that silence is exactly what you see in Surrey right now. Not panic, not chaos. Silence. Listings that used to receive 10 offers get none. Showings that used to feel competitive now feel like waiting rooms. The urgency that once defined the market has evaporated, replaced by the slow, heavy uncertainty of people who are no longer sure what the future looks like. Sellers stand in their kitchens, rehearsing price reductions, trying to tell themselves that a $50,000 drop is reasonable, that it's temporary, that they'll make it back later. Buyers scroll listings late at night, saving properties but never messaging agents, telling themselves that the smart move is to wait, because every month feels like the bottom might be lower. Realtors walk into appointments practicing a tone that balances realism and optimism, knowing that too much honesty can lose a client and not enough honesty can ruin them. Everyone is negotiating with themselves before they negotiate with anyone else. Meanwhile, the projects already under construction continue in slow motion. Concrete is poured, but crews are smaller. Drywall goes up, but suppliers tighten credit. The same tradespeople who built the boom are now building while looking over their shoulder, wondering which of their clients will still be solvent by the time the project reaches completion. They have seen this before, though never quite like this, because this isn't just about borrowing costs or materials or demand. It is about trust. And trust is the foundation that every housing market stands on. When trust cracks, the buildings might still be there, but the meaning of them changes. The numbers reveal the scale of the damage. Home prices across the Fraser Valley have dropped 6 months in a row. Detached homes in South Surrey have lost around $170,000 in value in just 1 year. Sales across the region are down more than a third from the 10-year average. Days on market have tripled. The sales to active listings ratio has fallen to 9%, which is not just a buyer's market, it is the definition of a frozen one. When that ratio drops below 12%, prices fall. Below 10%, they fall faster. And yet, this still doesn't mean homes are affordable. Mortgage rates are the real force here. A home that dropped $150,000 in price can still cost more per month than it did last year because of the interest rate difference. This is the cruel trick of the current market. The price is lower, but the cost is higher. So both sides lose. Sellers lose equity, buyers lose access, renters lose options, and the system turns in place without moving forward. No one feels this more sharply than the families who bought pre-sales at the top. For many of them, this wasn't just a purchase, it was their entire plan for how to start adulthood, build stability, or secure a future for their children. They believed the project would be built because projects always got built. They believed deposits were a step toward upward mobility. They believed the narrative everyone believed, that real estate in British Columbia always goes up, always pays off, always rewards those who enter early. But the pre-sale system has a weakness that most people don't notice until it breaks. You pay before the thing exists. You commit to something that is not real yet. And if the chain of financing collapses anywhere along the way, the people who are supposed to receive homes instead receive paperwork, phone calls, and uncertainty. They wait for email updates that say nothing. They check news articles that repeat the same statements. They contact lawyers who tell them that the trust protects the money, but time is the real cost, and time cannot be refunded. Some of these families are now living in rentals that cost more every month than the mortgage they expected to have. Some moved out of their previous units because they believed they were about to move into their new home. Some took loans from family that now hang over them like a shadow. They did everything society tells people to do: save, work, plan, invest, and the system still failed them. That failure is not a number. It is emotional. It is psychological. It breaks something inside a person when they realize that doing everything right does not guarantee work. They know how to build. They aren't afraid of hard times. But this isn't about hard times. This is about being owed money for work already done. A drywall installer who is owed nearly $2 million cannot simply wait it out. A crane operator unpaid for months cannot simply work harder. Small construction firms run on thin margins because they pay everyone else first and themselves last. When they stop being paid, they bleed. And when they bleed long enough, they disappear. A collapsed developer does not just take projects with it, it takes livelihoods. The market has slowed before, but this is different. This is not demand cooling while supply continues. This is supply shutting down while demand fractures. And it is happening at the exact moment when population growth in the region has slowed for the first time in years. When immigration policy shifts, student enrollment changes, and job markets tighten, the demand that once pushed prices up begins to fragment. The pressure that once built prices now evaporates. And instead of a boom, you get a pause. And that pause is where everything feels uncertain. What makes this moment dangerous is that it does not feel catastrophic. It feels quiet, like waiting for something to happen. It feels like a breath being held. But silence is not safety. Silence is pressure accumulating. The longer the pipeline is frozen, the more severe the shortage will be when demand returns. And demand always returns. Jobs return. Population grows again. Interest rates eventually come down. And when they do, the region will not have enough homes to meet the moment. Prices will rise again, but not because people are speculating. They will rise because there simply will not be enough places to live. That is the part of the story almost no one in the public sees yet. The collapse today is setting up the spike tomorrow. The question now is not whether this crisis will resolve, it is how much damage will be done before the next cycle begins. The decisions made in the next year will define whether Surrey becomes a city that grows sustainably or a cautionary tale that gets discussed for decades. For now, though, families are waiting, builders are waiting, lenders are waiting, the province is waiting. The skyline has stopped growing, and the silence is louder than any crash could ever be.
We all know, folks, we're in the midst of a housing crisis. Not only
Yeah, in the middle of a crisis. A couple of comments here I want to get to. I see all this happening in the construction markets we're working in. It's horrendous. And people that bought when the prices were high and now their dollar's going half as far, the banks are not remortgaging. They're losing their jobs. And the only one that's to be, positioned to take advantage of this is ultimately going to be Brookfield, right? With their tiny home projects, right? Comments here that are good comments from Gus. All this is affecting home insurance too. It's going up. All the fires are causing it to go up, even if you don't live anywhere near a forest. Companies won't cover people in Alberta because of Jasper and the fires. And the municipalities and municipal governments and water boards are absolutely like the mafia. They're telling people that they have to get work done that they don't really need done, or their insurance is going to be canceled. The taxes are doubling and in some cases tripling. The insurances are extortion organizations. All of that to quietly hide the problem that the system is being destroyed. But this comment from Patricia as well. Gonna have to find a good butcher. Absolutely. I highly, highly, highly recommend that. Find a farmer. Get on your local Facebook page, the Facebook Marketplace. Find somewhere where you can get a safe, steady supply of actual non-painted, non-chemically, non-sign, not a lab product. And that's, we have to somehow find ways to get our whole society to take part in not taking part, because it's only the not taking part that ultimately stops them. So this is kind of one of the, up next is one of the products. What does that look like when all of these things that we've covered, all of these absurdities for the last, 45 minutes or so, what does that look like? What does that do to us, to the people, the forgotten ones? This is a heartbreaking story.
This is the absolute state of Canada.
Seniors 65 and older made up nearly 5% of users at emergency shelters like this one behind me last year. That's up from 3.3% in 2021.
A home sweet home. I'm not sure how many of you saw this story. I'm thinking that CTV just wanted it to fly under the radar because it makes the Liberals look bad. But you need to watch this sad truth about our seniors in Canada. Make sure you hit the like button to help boost me in the algorithm. Leave a comment below letting me know your thoughts.
Sandy, I'm near an emergency shelter downtown, and like elsewhere in the country, beds fill fast. But seniors are showing up in higher numbers, and experts tell me they're struggling more than ever.
A home sweet home.
For more than 2 months, 76-year-old David Turner says he's been living, eating, and sleeping in his car.
The expense of everything is just crazy.
On good days, he drives to the Charlottetown Marina to greet tourists.
Welcome to PEI, sir.
Turner says his debt mounted, and after a couple months behind on rent, his landlord evicted him. Still, he feels more fortunate than others because he has a pension. It helps, but not enough to rent right now.
Seniors are struggling because of the cost of living, the cost of rent, the lack of affordable housing.
Seniors 65 and older made up nearly 5% of users at emergency shelters like this one behind me last year. That's up from 3.3% in 2021. In Atlantic Canada, 18% of people in the same age group have poverty-level living standards, higher than any other region, according to the National Institute on Aging.
These are some of the fastest growing groups that we're seeing who are represented by homelessness and food bank usage. It's amongst older Canadians.
Dr. Samir Sinha wants to see a portion of new housing set aside for seniors. The federal government says the upcoming budget will add measures to further the new agency Build Canada Homes, which aims to double the rate of construction. An official with the Finance Department said the agency will focus on building both affordable and deeply affordable housing, calculated based on the median income of low or very low income households in a region. As for Turner, he plans to start looking for a more permanent place to live and hopes that soon this will all be in the rear view.
This is just one of God knows how many scenarios that many of our seniors in Canada are facing. The ironic part about this is that it's people in this man's age bracket who voted to keep him on the streets. Liberal policies have driven up the cost of living so drastically that people have to live in their cars or tents. This should make every Canadian enraged. aged. Seniors spent their entire lives saving up money and working toward retirement just so they can relax and enjoy the remaining years. But liberals are so keen on inviting every Tom, Dick, and Harry into Canada just so they can buy up all the properties, rent out each individual room while charging insane prices for rent. Why do you think that you see so many newcomers piling into rooms like they're sardines in a can? Landlords will purchase a property and then evict the people just so they can charge ridiculous prices. David Turner deserves better. Canada deserves better.
100% Canada deserves better. It's the disparity. That is the price of crime. That is the crime tax. That's why nobody can afford to live. And I agree, Brenda. People don't want MAID, but this is where they're being driven to, and they're being badgered and lobbied by the medical establishment and all of the establishment. Well, if it's so bad, we can offer you MAID. Are you feeling depressed? We can offer you MAID. Are you feeling any anxiety? We can offer you MAID. And that is the new normal of Canada. Or should I say Chinada, right? And they're not the only vulnerable ones. More absurdity, you guys. This again, more just pure evil. And the fact that this is happening. I do have a farmer near me, farm girl, but it's pretty expensive. I get some hamburger from there, so that's typically my my go-to. So, and bacon. I live for my bacon. I love my bacon, but the vulnerable, the social contract has absolutely been stolen from Canadians. There's no promise left in Canada. There isn't even safety and protection left in Canada. Not for anybody, not the seniors, not the kids either.
It was right around this time last year that our government asked us to give up our freedom of expression to protect the children.
Protecting our kids, all kids, from this kind of abuse and exploitation is what governments must do, and we will do that. This is what the Online Harms Act will do. This bill will require platforms to do their part and to do better to keep people safe from harm and exploitation, especially our children.
And now the Supreme Court of Canada has struck down mandatory minimums for the possession of child pornography based on a hypothetical scenario that may violate somebody's charter rights. So now the government's doubling down on Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, as the only way to protect the children.
But let's not forget the conduct of the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. They refuse to support C-63, which would help protect our children against online crime, online predators.
But there's just one problem. The people handpicking the judges are the same people writing the legislation.
Boom.
So be very suspicious of anybody using this narrative because it has nothing to do with protecting the kids.
Absolutely nothing to do with protecting the kids. The people that write the policy also judges. And where's that getting us? All right. Well, we'll take a look at that next.
Speaker, I spent much of my legal career prosecuting internet offenses against children. This included possession of child sexual abuse material. Let's be clear, victims often serve a psychological life sentence. Last week, the Supreme Court of Canada struck down the mandatory 1 year in jail for possession of child sexual abuse and exploitation material. The minister said today that he won't use the notwithstanding clause on this ruling. So the question is this: why are the rights of victims second and the rights of sex offenders first?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, through actions, we are standing up for victims.
She's the new DEI Brown version of Chrystia Freeland. Mr. Speaker.
Of crime. Plain and simple, Mr. Speaker, child abusers should face the toughest penalties under Canadian law. That's why we introduced C4.
No. These are obviously important issues, and therefore we deserve important debates. So the Secretary of State, from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The rights of victims are very important to this government. That is why we have been taking action. And let me make it very plain and simple to the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. Child abusers should face the toughest penalties under Canadian law. That is why we introduced C-14. We're making reforms, sweeping reforms, Mr. Speaker, that make bail stricter, that make sentences tougher, and that make sure that child abusers stay behind bars. Mr. Speaker, we also introduced lawful access so that we can catch child predators and we can give law enforcement the tools that are needed, Mr. Speaker, but the Conservatives are against it.
The honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, Bill C-14 has nothing to do with mandatory minimums for those who possess and produce child sexual abuse and exploitation material. I have looked far too many victims in the eye to feel comfortable giving the answer that the minister just gave, Mr. Speaker. Victims don't want excuses, they want action. We often hear about charter rights for the accused, including pedophiles, but we don't hear about rights for the victims. If the minister has ruled out using the notwithstanding clause, what's his plan to take sex offenders off our streets?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we've been taking action on this issue since day one. We introduced legislation called C-63 that made sexual offenses online, but the Conservatives did not support it, Mr. Speaker. We brought lawful access provision so that child pedophiles can be caught, Mr. Speaker, but the Conservatives did not support it.
So I'm interested in hearing this answer. So the Secretary of State... Secretary of State may continue.
Mr. Speaker, child abusers are amongst the most reprehensible in our society. That is why we've taken many measures like C-63, like C-14, and like lawful access provisions so that they can be caught in the first place, Mr. Speaker. We're also going to be bringing forward new
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the recent Supreme Court decision, which stated that 1 year of imprisonment for having accessed or possessed child sexual abuse material, saying that this was cruel and unusual punishment, is a real insult to the victims of these crimes. The Conservative government had hardened minimum sentences for this content. It's very clear that this government, and I wonder why, is more protecting the rights of pedophiles than the rights of children.
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, we are all about protecting the rights of children. That is why we want to give law enforcement the tools that are needed to catch predators online. We brought forward tougher sentences for child offenders. These child abusers should be put behind bars, and that is exactly where we intend to keep them through C-14 and the new legislation that we're going to be tabling in this House this fall.
Absolute bold lies right after it's been disclosed that a year too long in prison for child porn pedos. This government aids, abets, protects pedos. Why? Lobby groups, NGOs, nonprofits, and some of the charities. Remember that we looked at last night and how many politicians they have involved in them, and all of these unions, QP, CUPW, ATA, NDP, Alphabet Soup, Palestinian, all of them come out in protest and support of exactly this kind of crap. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease, folks. This is ruled by the mob. Those who are the loudest and the most threatening to the crime syndicate income, and I'm not talking about threatening and violence. The Antifa does that against the rest of the population. Antifa doesn't, threaten violence on politicians, right? That's what they have the Charlie Angus's for, right? So this is the absurdity and the intellectual dishonesty and the lack of self-respect that makes all of this completely unfixable. The housing is collapsing. Food stocks are collapsing, being stolen and poisoned. People are being offered MAID as a first solution. 14.7 million of us are being targeted. Both voluntary and involuntary slaughter by the state is soon to be acceptable by the state. I'm pretty sure I would tick all of the boxes for the involuntary mating. I have no desire to leave this world any earlier than God intends, and God does not intend for this government to kill me. I believe in the freedom of the promise of life that our government in no capacity is protecting, but they will protect the pedos and the child porn distributors, all of the people that keep that billion-dollar industry going, protected, and the unions will continue to enforce it, and they pick the damn judges. Canada needs a real political wake-up call.
No way. I know. Shocking, right? Our country has been run by absolute sissies for far too long, and it really shows in our society.
Hey, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me, dude. Hey,
let me
get out of my face.
No,
get out
I'm
of
not
my
in your
face.
face, man.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not in your face.
Get out of my face.
Here.
Get out of my
Let
face.
me moon you, man.
Get out of my face, dude.
You're cool, man.
Dude,
How much you guys
get
get
out
paid?
of my face.
You shave?
Get out of my face.
Do you have a job?
Get out of my face.
I'm not in your face.
Yes, you
Public.
are. You touched me
Go.
already. Don't
Get a
touch
cop.
me.
Get a cop.
Don't touch me.
Go help yourself. Get a cop.
Don't touch me.
Get a cop.
Don't touch me.
There's a cop
Sir,
right there.
take your medication.
No.
Take your medication.
No, go fuck your mother.
Take your medication.
Go fuck your mother.
Sir,
Go fuck
calm
your
down.
mother.
Sir,
Go fuck your mother.
calm down. Get out of my
Little
space.
bitch.
Get out of my
Little
space.
bitch.
Get out of my space.
Canada doesn't need a Mark Carney or a Pierre Poilievre. We need a leader like Donald Trump. We need someone who's just as extreme as he is. And he's really not even that extreme, in my opinion. But many Canadians have been brainwashed to believe that his policies are crazy, especially as it pertains to the ICE raids getting rid of illegal immigrants.
And deportation numbers hitting record highs since President Trump's return to office. His administration booting more than 515,000 illegal migrants so far. 1.6 million illegals have left the country on their own, with immigration agents arresting 485,000. DHS saying that Trump is set to shatter the U.S. deportation record by the end of 2025.
Canada has been governed by far-left extremists for over a decade now, so I think that we need someone to kind of balance things out. A moderate conservative is not going to take necessary measures in order to help our country recover. I'm not just talking about the economy. I'm talking about everything. DEI, woke policies, climate change, mass immigration, forced indoctrination of our children into both gender ideology and radical left politics.
Well, the Toronto District School Board is investigating after a teacher reportedly showed part of the video of Kirk's assassination to some young students. The school board has not released the name of the teacher, only that they were a staff member at the Corvette Junior Public School. The school's principal says the teacher had been supervising a class of French immersion students in grades 5 and 6 when the video was shown, adding that the teacher was relieved of all responsibilities until an investigation was complete.
We need a leader who's going to basically say,
borders are not racist, speech is not violence, terrorists are bad, men can never become women, police are not criminals, and criminals are not victims.
I don't think Canada has a politician like that. The PPC party comes close at times, but they seem to focus on plucking more right-leaning people from the Conservative Party. They use emotional manipulation on issues conservatives refuse to talk about. So what's the problem with Pierre Poilievre? Well, it's not that there's a problem per se, it's more his lack of attention to issues that many Canadian conservatives believe are important. He often avoids committing to certain ideas because he's afraid that he's going to lose the moderate conservatives and PCs who are easily swayed by the NDP as a viable option. And he doesn't lean too far to the right because he's afraid to be characterized as an extremist. It's a fine line that he's threading. Now, liberals, they're just unapologetically open about their ridiculous policies, and they even champion them with zero pushback.
With the hate penalty first. So if you're found guilty of an indictable offense, a maximum penalty under the hate crime, it will be 5 years.
If I'm not mistaken, he's speaking about quotes from the Bible. Punishments for quotes from the Bible.
Maximum term of imprisonment for the included offense is 2 years or more, but less than 5 years. 10 years if the maximum term of imprisonment is included offense is 5 years or more, but less than 10 years. 14 years if the maximum term of imprisonment is the included offense is 10 years or more, but less than 14 years. And life if the maximum term of imprisonment for the included offense is 14 years or more, and up to imprisonment for life.
I'm not sure what to expect anymore, and I do support Pierre 100%. I just don't think that he can walk this tightrope as he gets attacked from all angles. The media is constantly running smear campaigns and doing their best to discredit Pierre.
You have MPs that have told me that they found it really difficult going door to door because a lot of people were saying, we like some of the policies you're doing, but we think your leader's a dick. And we, really, and we think he is, I'm sorry, but that's what they're telling me.
And the overall public opinion about him from the conservative standpoint seems to be...
Now that, I want to go back to that, just that last little clip there.
Really? and we
that is normalizing the negative propaganda against political opposition. It does not get any more biased gaslighting propaganda than that from this. The Communist Broadcasting Corporation of Canada, the one that they steal from us for to pump this drivel out there and make it okay, and then follow up with the polls that say and tell Canadians what's to believe. Oh yeah, Carney's leading because Pierre's a dick. Complete freaking psyop and setup between our mercenaries in media and the whores in Parliament, because that's exactly what they are. This is what we get.
We think he is, I'm sorry, but that's what they're telling me.
And the overall public opinion about him from the conservative standpoint seems to be meh. It's almost like people are sick of hearing from him. That's what I've observed on many social media sites and in my comment section. Conservatives are going to vote for him regardless, but they don't want to hear from him anymore. And I think part of that problem is the frustration over him losing the election, and perhaps people feel like there's no way that he can win again because liberals should have been guaranteed a loss. They almost lost party status, for God's sakes.
I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister.
And Pierre was projected to win by a landslide. Since that didn't happen, I think people believe that our system is corrupted to the point where there's no possibility of recovery.
Canada's elections are compromised, with growing evidence of both foreign interference and systemic failures undermining our democratic process. In BC's recent election, it was just reported that in the Surrey-Guildford riding, 28 ballots were uncounted. This is a shocking failure in a race that was won by only 27 votes by NDP's Gary Begg. Further stoking public outrage, election workers were reportedly allowed to take ballots to their own homes, an alarming breach of election security. On top of these procedural failures, the BC NDP's David Eby, who claimed victory in the election, is advised by Ding Guo, a journalist known for connections to Chinese Communist Party affiliated organizations. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service has confirmed China's interference in Canada's 2019 and 2021 elections. Yet here, in one of Canada's most significant provincial elections, a candidate advised by a figure with CCP connections now wields power in British Columbia. What's worse, John Rustad's call for an independent review to address these incidents is being dismissed.
Every single politician is fake. They put on fake smiles and act like they have our best interests at heart when they could really care less. Every single one of them. There are movements across Canada that show just how sick and tired people are of being taken advantage of by people who pull the strings on us like we're puppets in their little show theater.
Today, meanwhile, selfish multi-millionaire career politicians and do-nothing bureaucrats cower, hide, and pander to alien fifth columns while Canada is being pillaged, raped, and burned. Our children face an uncertain and dangerous future. Our reputation and our dignity are in tatters. How can politicians be the kind of leader Canadians deserve Leaders like Isaac Brock, when they cannot even tell you what a Canadian is. They are not fit to say his name, they are not deserving of our support, and they are not worthy of the name Canadian. The honor of this name was won on battlefields like Queenston Heights, Capyong, and Vinnie Ridge. Paid for in the blood of our irreplaceable sons. Now we are told that that name belongs to anyone and everyone who comes here. Our family name, simply by the material reality of where their feet happen to be planted. Madness!
We've been seeing an increase in drug overdoses, maid applicants, transfer trucks flying off our roads, people being murdered without a trace, kids disappearing without a trace, criminal enterprises flourishing, horrible healthcare, and just unsafe living conditions.
Canada has become a playground for the world's most criminals. But don't take my word for it. Here's the Minister of External Affairs from India.
Number of people with organized crime links from Punjab have been made welcome in Canada. We have been telling Canada, saying, look, these are wanted criminals from India. You have given them visas. They have come, many of them, in false documentation. And yet you allow them to live there. If you decide to import for political purposes people with very dubious, actually very negative background, there will be issues. They have, in some cases, created problems in their own country as a result of their own policies.
Now consider that crime from India pales in comparison to the threats posed by Chinese criminal organizations. These groups are claiming billions of dollars in casinos, which then flow through our banking system, infiltrating Canadian politics. Out of Markham, Ontario, while his organization ran illegal casinos and engaged in human trafficking from multi-million-dollar properties in our suburbs. You'd think our politicians would be focused on dismantling these criminal enterprises, but allegedly they are too busy enjoying these casinos to shut them down. These organizations have also infiltrated critical institutions, including the Canadian Border Services Agency. Whistleblowers have come forward alleging that CBSA managers instructed agents to destroy passports and documents which could have uncovered organized crime, all while also turning a blind eye to human smuggling operations at the border. Over the past 9 years, violent crime has surged, which is a direct consequence of reckless immigration policies in lenient bail reforms that treat crime as a mere inconvenience. Whether it's due to incompetence or malice doesn't make a difference. At this point, the Canadian government and its policies are a direct threat to the people of Canada.
Now, exactly what type of person could ensure that these issues are resolved? Someone like Trump. Someone who is going to deport the foreign criminals and illegal immigrants who snuck into our country. Someone who's going to prioritize Canada first. Someone who is going to lock up criminals and keep them locked up. Someone who will destroy wokeness and DEI. I'm not confident that that person exists in Canada, but I sure hope we get someone like that soon. Otherwise, there won't be a Canada. But hey, at least we'll still have Little India or Chinada.
So no, otherwise we won't have Canada. And without getting a leader with fortitude, we're going to get more of this. Yes, this is Second Sons. This is Jeremy McKenzie, formerly Diagolon. But here's the challenge that I have with this. This is exactly what the government wants. These guys are preparing for violence. I don't think we win with violence. I understand their sentiment completely. Every one of us feels exactly the same way. But I don't think that these guys are interested in exploring alternative means or working with other Canadians. And I'm not sure that I want my ass cashing the checks that these guys are going to write. Because all it's going to take is one altercation with a group like that to provide the government with every justification in their minds to come and shut down the rest of us, silence the internet, and jail anybody that opposes them. That's what scares me. I took a lot of the same training as Jeremy did, but I can't find that kind of anger in my heart. And it spooks me. It spooks me. Most of you guys, you're not fighting age young men. Fighting age young men, you know what they do about shows like this? They sneer, they snub, they judge, and they tell me I'm a quack or a kook. Or they want to accuse me of being a coward. Or all of this other shit. There's no, self-respecting young men that wants to engage in anything except violence. Even people that I know, their answer is, we'll wait for the shooting to start. Well, by then it's too damn late. There is no Canada left. I've tried to talk to Jeremy. He won't talk to me. He looks down his nose at anybody else like me. They have no interest in working with other groups. They're creating literally a militia. And I've been following Jeremy for a long time. I'm not saying he doesn't have just cause for righteous anger. He has been abused horribly by the regime that we have. Then I've got, now that we're on to Chinada, and we don't have to agree on everything, that's fine. You don't have to agree on me. I'm just sharing what I think. I'm not telling anybody else what to think. But when I see militia groups starting, what I hear in my head, the government's response to that is, remember that RCMP speaker that said traditional values? Anybody that was, didn't support, they are in danger of being radicalized. That's what they're talking about. That is what the RCMP considers the most dangerous threat. That is not the most dangerous threat. But that's what the regime wants us to believe is. I have no doubt that Jeremy would protect the people that he's around. No doubt about that whatsoever. To his last heartbeat, he would. But this is how fragile Canada is. The tipping point, the boiling point, the implosion point. I'm really concerned because I know that our regime is manufacturing this. This is predictable, expected, and desired outcomes by the regime in place. Then you've got these two. Now we're going to get into Chinada. And Mark Carney making excuses for China.
We had a discussion on foreign interference. We had a discussion on a range of other issues. Recognizing that setting it back on track, particularly on the economic side, was an important part of the discussion. I don't think they recognize the level of concerns we have about these issues, but we manage these issues in Canada. We have a structure to manage. We will be pragmatic, that we will be open and frank with each other on issues, and there are issues of challenge, and where we can find common ground, we'll find common ground, and where we have differences, and there are big differences in our societies, in our governments, we'll respect those.
So China is experiencing our foreign interference differently than we are, and Mark Carney was literally just there making excuses for him. And why? It's like John Chrétien. Oh, it's only a few ridings. What difference? What impact could it make, right? Jean Chrétien, the Frenchman that was the prime minister and the head of the crime syndicate for so long. Don't worry about the Chinese police stations. Right. You remember John Chrétien. Right. But surprise, surprise, surprise. There's not a video with this. It's an audio clip, but this is David Icke's return back to YouTube. For how long, I have no idea. But he's speaking about exactly what we're enduring here. And this is kind of a warning before we get into some fact checking from who do we got? We got Sam Cooper and Douglas Murray, and some other stuff that's going to make your blood boil when it comes to Islamophobia. So we're under a multi-front attack. We've talked about this many times. We literally have China, political Islam, and Geneva and Davos fighting over Canada, and all of the I do a pretty good Gretchen impression, right? I did not say that. It's not what I said. Oh, man. It's painful sometimes. But we'll get this warning from David Icke before we fact check it, or should I say, before Sam Cooper fact checks everything that David Icke says here.
It's been an interesting week. It's just extraordinary how, when you work out how the world's controlled by who and through what means, how easy it is to predict events day by day, week by week, year by year, decade by decade. And I had my own experience of madness and predictable madness with an article this week in a British newspaper called The Observer. Now, The Observer is part of the Guardian group, and the Guardian, the Observer, and another one called the hysterically called Independent are the most woke of British newspapers. In other words, they are fundamentally promoting the agenda of the 1%. That's what woke does. And one of their writers, a guy called Nick Cohen, produced an article demanding that I be banned from YouTube and banned from social media because I was putting lives at risk by challenging the official story. So you see what I mean? This is what woke is there for, to promote the agenda of the 1% that it claims to despise. The whole world is an inversion. Hold on a second. Hello. I'm all right. I'm in the middle of the podcast. All right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Gareth talking to me. Okay, I'll talk to you later, mate. Bye. Sorry about that. I keep asking people not to call me at work. So anyway, we've got this Nick Cohen, and he's demanding that I be banned. He's also demanding that Ofcom, the government regulator of broadcasting, mainstream broadcasting, which has threatened mainstream broadcasters with severe sanctions if they even have a single person on to discuss the possibility that 5G has any connection to current events. Mr. Cohen, who claims to be a liberal, he's not a liberal, he's the opposite of liberal, he's woke, which is the opposite of liberal. He wants Ofcom to be given the powers in Britain to also censor the internet. So he's an absolute solid gold promoter of the 1% agenda. And when he posted his article on Twitter, he came out with a classic line. This is so classically woke. In fact, it's almost the best example I've ever come across. He said in the tweet that posted his article, the liberal case for banning David Icke. It takes some mental gymnastics and some self-deception. In fact, it takes it on a world scale to believe that banning someone's freedom of speech to challenge the establishment narrative can have somehow be a liberal case. But this is the woke mentality. They believe that censoring anyone with a different view to them is somehow liberal. Because what woke has done, funded by the 1%, and not least people like George Soros around the world, they've hijacked the traditional, genuine liberal left, and they have inverted it into a tyrannical, anything but liberal right. And so there you go. Not that left and right mean anything anyway, just terms to give us the idea we have choice when we don't. So that's been interesting, but also extraordinarily predictable, because the agenda that's unfolding now so blatantly with this fake pandemic is everything that this global cult has ever wanted, basically, as it turns the West into China, which is what I've been predicting for decades is what they plan to do. And without the acquiescence, indeed the promotion and censorship of the mainstream media, and I mean self-censorship, there's that great there's that great line, words to the effect of, "You cannot bribe or twist the great British journalist, but seeing what they will do unbribed, there's no reason to." And so the mainstream media worldwide just stays in its little parameters and will not challenge anything beyond them. And Cohen is an extreme example of it. But without this, if the narrative had been really challenged from the start, then it would have been shown to a worldwide audience to have been a pack of lies. And I'm going to get into that today as well. So as I said, and have been saying all these years, China is the blueprint of where they want to take the world. They've been able to incubate their global blueprint within the borders of China, because China's a tyranny and they can do what they bloody like. The Chinese government is just a cult front. That's all it is. That's why they have so many connections to the cult operatives in the United States. That's why they have so many connections to Silicon Valley, cult fronts in Silicon Valley. We're doing all the censorship now because the cult fronts in Silicon Valley are there to introduce the Chinese censorship control model to the West and the rest of the world, not just the West. And so it's no surprise that we've had this week the Atlantic magazine, which is 100% elite, promoting the elite agenda, should publish an article by two, they're called academics, but you call anything academic these days, that that promotes the.
Just a quick update for folks. Virginia has gone Democrat, and looks like New York is going to get Sharia law. Sorry about your luck, America. Welcome to what Canada's going through, but yeah, New York now has a jihad mayor promising Sharia law in the United States. Who did not see that coming?
Agenda. And it's a neoconservative publication, neoconservative meaning that far right, Israel-controlled network in the United States that was behind the, well, it was behind 9/11 for a start, in a wider sense. And it was behind the invasion of Iraq and the invasion of Afghanistan and all that followed. So you can see where they're coming from. And that whole network that was behind 9/11 and the invasions in, and devastation in the Middle East are the same network. Not just them, the neoconservatives are only part of it, only a strand in it, but it's the same basic network cult that that is behind this fake pandemic. So this is a story, this is an article on davidite.com this week. Neoconservative publication The Atlantic has published an article authored by two university professors titled "How Easy It Must Be to Become a Professor These Days." I mean, you know, what level of innate intelligence do you need to become a professor? Nil, it would seem. And I'm going to present an example here. It's by two university professors, titled "Internet Speech Will Never Go Back to Normal," and subtitled wait for it. In the debate over freedom versus control of the global network, China was largely correct and the US was wrong. These academics, which of course are just fronts for the narrative, for the agenda, doing its bidding, want the internet and control of the internet to become like it is controlled in China, because, as I've been saying all these years and years and years, China is the blueprint for the world. And what has happened as a result of this fake pandemic, the Chinese model has become massively the Western model. So The Atlantic has an editor-in-chief called Jeffrey Goldberg, who once assured the world, the article says, that the coming invasion of Iraq will be remembered as an act of profound morality. Obviously another idiot, but you know, it is easy to write these people off as idiots. But is it idiocy or is it agenda? I suggest it is agenda big time in the case of Jeffrey Goldberg and so many others. This goes on to quote the article. In the great debate of the past 2 decades about freedom versus control of the network, China was largely right and the United States was largely wrong. Significant monitoring and speech control are inevitable components of a mature and flourishing internet. Oh my God. And governments must play a large role in these practices to ensure that the internet is compatible with the society's norms and values. It's incredible. These people have absolutely no shame. They talk about compatible with society's norms. Well, who imposes the norms? Who's imposed the norm that people are living with around the world today? The elite, the cult. And values. Would that be values like freedom of speech? What do you think? No. They're not values. Values are to enforce and to comply with the norms set by the cult. And so it goes on and it goes on. And, you know, I don't want to throw up, you know, in the middle of a podcast. So I'll leave it there. But you can see more and more this theme starting to move towards the Chinese model is what we want. And people are receiving this from their schools, parents are receiving this from schools now. And this is what it says. Prevent. Now, prevent is the British government's name for stopping radicalization. And again, like I've been saying over the years, they introduce anti-terrorism legislation, but the way it's worded means that they can apply it to everything. So the anti-terrorist legislation is with lots of hoaxed terrorist attacks and terrorist attacks carried out by often mind-controlled agents provocateurs of the cult. They were used to introduce anti-terrorism legislation. 9/11 was done massively to do that when Arab hijackers weren't involved, as I show in the trigger. Anyway, so now they apply, and always intended to apply these anti-terrorism laws across society to nothing to do with terrorism. So let me read what this police and these others have been sending out this week. Prevent. Online platforms can be a fun world. Ooh. Unfortunately, they can also be used to exploit vulnerable people. Yeah, and the governments do it all the time. If you are worried that one of your friends or family is showing signs of radicalization, seek advice or call the police on 101. And what is online radicalization?
Hear that? Did you guys hear what he read there? I'm going to back it up just a couple of seconds because that was verbatim what the RCMP said here in Canada. Your comment, Jennifer, soon it will be like Escape from New York. Tomorrow it will already be like the Escape from New York because they will be so drawn to that, like cockroaches to the flame. And New York might be ground zero for the American Revolution. Hypothetically, that can't be taken off of the table here right now because, you know, and it's just so absurd to me. After 9/11, this is what happens. This is what it becomes. Not just Dearborn, Michigan anymore. Now it's New York too. Oh man. Oh man. That is scary. It is going to be an exodus starting tomorrow morning.
Well, are you worried about someone? Are they speaking to people who are spreading hate? And here's the one that is really all about.
This is the one. This is the quote that is verbatim what the RCMP officer went on the national broadcast news and said to Canadians.
Are they repeating conspiracy theories? They can't even spell conspiracy right. And so what is happening is the cult is moving in through its Silicon Valley and through its police to silence those who are in any way questioning the deeply, fundamentally, to its core, mendacious official narrative of what's going on. Now, where else do they do that? I got it. China, because it's the Chinese model being imposed upon the rest of the world. And so we have this story. Bill Gates, cult frontman, defends China's coronavirus response. Billionaire says Beijing did a lot of things right at the start of the pandemic and claims criticism of the Communist Party is a distraction. Well, of course, because the whole idea was to have the cult network that controls China and its response, its draconian response to the outbreak of the quote virus, with massive lockdowns and pulling people out of their homes, pulling people off the streets. That was meant to become the blueprint for how the West responded once this, I say, fake virus and the illusion created by fake death certificate diagnosis imposed from the top of the hierarchy around the world on doctors and medical staff, and all the rest that I've talked about before. The response to it had to be established in China. And so once that had happened, once the massively draconian measures had been imposed in China, so suddenly the Chinese numbers started to plummet, which if you're manipulating the figures in many and various ways, which I have explained elsewhere, then you can decide if it goes up and you can decide if it goes down. And so, the Chinese draconian lockdowns have worked. We should do that. And so what did you have? You have the Gates-controlled World Health Organization and this Gates mouthpiece called Tedros, completely corrupt bloke from Ethiopia, saying that China had shown how to beat the virus, fight the virus. And you had Bill Gates coming out and saying the same. China did a lot of things right at the beginning, like any country where a virus first shows up, said Gates to CNN, another cult operation. And the blueprint of lockdown is the way to deal with it was therefore set exactly as planned all along. And it's been imposed around the world to destroy the status quo, so a new status quo can replace it.
So do you remember back at the beginning of COVID, they showed us these videos of people dropping dead on the streets, being welded into their apartment blocks, all of that, on the streets fumigating, until we had lockdowns. Oh, well, then it just magically cleared up in China. They were the first ones free of the lockdowns while we were still lining up to be guinea pigs so that we could, go to a restaurant. Absolutely manufactured crisis. When it comes to Mamdani in New York, you can thank the unions and the globalists and the jihadists and the communists. New York is going to be a scary, scary place in days. Right. So now we'll fact check, or shall I say Sam Cooper will fact check as to whether Mr. Ike is correct about Canada, at least. So this is a written article on the Bureau. I'm going to read it for everybody here, so bear with me. I've already been talking for 2.5 hours straight, so my voice is getting a little gravelly, but I've got my trash can. All right. Overrun, Washington's grim verdict on Canada's CCP infiltration crisis. In Under Assault, expert Dennis Molinaro concludes that U.S. officials see Canada as struggling to counter Beijing's expanding operations, a failure that increasingly threatens American security. Well, I don't think they're struggling at all here in Canada, Mr. Molino. They're not struggling at all. It's going exactly according to plan. So, Mr. Molinaro, thank you for your diplomatic, description. So now we'll get into the article. I better reboot this. The gremlins have arrived. I guess they don't like me talking about Mark Carney and New York and Chinada. Just a sec, guys. I'll have it back up. All right. Ottawa. In his striking conclusion to Under Assault, former national security analyst Dennis Molinaro reveals that U.S. government sources have privately described Canada as overrun with Chinese influence, the ultimate consequence of a 50-year pattern begun under Pierre Trudeau and Henry Kissinger, just anecdotally, and seemingly accelerated by his son. It's a finding that resonates sharply as Justin Trudeau's successor, Prime Minister Mark Carney, renews deeper ties with Beijing amid Washington's intensifying security-driven tariff pressures on its allies. Correct. Mark Carney is leaning on China more and more and more, now making excuses for China so that we don't have to deal with the national security problem that we are. Molinaro lays out his case, arguing that a double standard has taken root in Canada's approach to China. He contrasts Justin Trudeau, who admires the basic dictatorship, and the RCMP's aggressive pursuit of Indian officials and linked organized crime proxies with their persistent failure to confront comparable and far greater Chinese threats. This pattern runs through Trudeau's testimony, denying repeated intelligence findings on Beijing's interference within his own party and government institutions, and through multiple examples across federal departments. Like I said, guys, the system is working perfectly, designed to provide the plausibility and plausible deniability to maintain the continuity of the crime syndicate posing as government, right? Among them, Commissioner Marie-Josée Hogue's conclusions on Chinese interference, which appeared to downplay or miscast stronger findings from an earlier NISCOP review, and the actions of Trudeau's national security advisor, who allegedly blocked or sanitized a report that named names of parliamentarians targeted by China, a case that echoes Britain's unfolding Chinese spy scandal. I remember that? They literally had to sue the government and still never got the names of the Chinese infiltrators. That's how far they're willing to go to protect the crime syndicate. In interviews with officials tied to congressional and Senate committees on the Chinese Communist Party, Molinaro uncovered a stark consensus in Washington's intelligence community, one that, he notes, had solidified long before Donald Trump's return to office. So this was a problem even for Biden, right? Ottawa, they said, is not merely slow to act on Beijing's interference, but increasingly viewed as a compromised link in the Western security chain, and therefore a liability to American interests. Well, we heard that from the CSIS agents too, where Canada could not be trusted. Already under Biden, we are a security liability to America. I asked them for an honest assessment of how the U.S. interprets its northern neighbor when it comes to the People's Republic of China for an interference. Molinaro explains, it's worth mentioning that these comments were made before Trump's election win and during Biden's time in office. I don't want to say joke, one official told him, but the saying you get a lot of times here is, look to Canada if you want to see what could happen here. So in other words, don't be Canada. The message I was trying to deliver to American broadcasters for years, and apparently didn't get the memo through, as we're seeing in Dearborn and New York, right? Another even more blunt statement, Canada is overrun. I know some of the people I work with in the malign influence space, fake news, says Canada is trying to stay afloat. No. They're cooperating, covering up, protecting. Molinaro writes that these officials seem to hold back some of what they knew, but when he asked why Canada is trying to stay afloat, the careful answer pointed to certain perceptions within the Canadian government about China and Chinese influence. Molinaro stresses that his breach in American confidence is not academic. The uncomfortable truth, he concludes, is that the threat of the People's Republic to China, of China to Canada, has been and remains a direct threat to the national security of the United States. Fake news isn't going to tell you that. Not one of them. With both nations sharing intelligence pipelines, defense infrastructure, and deeply integrated economies, Ottawa's paralysis magnifies a Washington problem or exposure, right? The more Canada dithers on this acting against PRC operations, he notes, the larger the risk to the U.S. That dithering, Molinaro argues, has become institutionalized, meaning that's a nice way of saying the institution is obfuscating, it is hiding, it is protecting the foreign influence of China and the control that it has in the Canadian establishment, the entire institution, which exists only as an apparatus, as I keep saying, to provide the plausibility that Canada is a legitimate country when it is actually a crime syndicate posing as government, right? Arguably, one could argue it was the Geneva crime syndicate, the Davos crime syndicate, or the Mexican cartel crime syndicate, but most accurately, the CCP syndicate infiltration. The Trudeau Liberals were perpetuating a mindset and government culture that appeared to predate them. So before the Liberals, before Trudeau, they were. It was already in place, and they were, just carrying it, keeping it going, perpetuating it. While my interviews were convincing, I could never verify if they were true or not, but the totality of my research, especially the testimony of government officials at the inquiry, suggested that Canada had been determined to historically see China one way, and it was the wrong way. The PRC appeared to be a potential partner on the Asian continent, a place where Canadians could do business, a trading partner that could help Canada be less reliant on the U.S., and a country that would eventually be seduced by our freedoms enough to adopt our democratic values. What democratic values? China didn't adopt Canada's democratic values. Canada adopted Chinese communism. Straight up. Security concerns never seemed to be able to disrupt these views, which meant that no amount of intelligence would change people's minds. So security doesn't matter. It's not a part of the equation. They don't care about national security. They want to maintain the relationship and the servitude to the Chinese Communist Party. Got it. And just like Yuri Bezmenov said, no amount of intelligence and evidence would change people's minds. They are committed to bringing in the CCP regime ideology, right? In one striking case centered on Trudeau's own testimony, Molinaro exposes a troubling conflict within law enforcement. Gee, we've heard that right from the horse's mouths, haven't we? At the Foreign Interference Inquiry, RCMP Deputy Commissioner Mark Flynn acknowledged that his division had been informed of a PRC-linked money laundering network tied to organized crime and foreign influence activity and chose not to investigate. The reason, Flynn admitted, was the multiple backup networks could simply replace any network shutdown. So because they can't keep taking them down and they're going to be replaced immediately, kind of like the fentanyl labs, right? They choose to do nothing. Exactly what we see on the streets. Catch and release, from pedos to fentanyl labs, CCP crime syndicates, MS-13, all of the terrorist organizations, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Khalistani terrorists, all of them, right? Molinaro interprets this as a revealing window into Canada's unwillingness to confront Chinese transnational crime. You're right. They don't want to. Even as the same force pursued Indian networks with visible urgency under Trudeau's political pressure. Why did they go after the Indians? Because the Indians caught him with a boatload of snow on his airplane and kept him there for 2 days. That's why he got pissy, why Trudeau got pissy at the Indians, right? Bizarrely, on the other hand, Molinaro writes that Flynn had essentially conceded that there's so much money laundering going on, shutting down the activity of Chinese organized crime wouldn't make a difference. Well, with 4,500 gangs and crime syndicates running the country, and the establishment providing the opportunity and the environment for all of this, no. How can they make a difference on their own? They've been neutered, remember? They told us so themselves. Molinaro notes that Trudeau's own appearance before Justice Marie-Jose Hogue amplified this pattern of avoidance rather than confronting the specifics of Chinese operations targeting Canadian democracy, including the above-noted case, in mystery and raising legitimate questions from the Bureau's perspective about whether China-linked laundering networks could have intersected with campaign financing or even broader transnational repression operations. The Prime Minister redirected attention towards India. Mr. Ike, you are correct yet again. 100%. Right? And New York, you're about to get a taste of it. Remember what I keep saying, guys. The establishment, the system exists solely to maintain the to provide the and plausible deniability required to maintain the continuity of the crime syndicates posing as government. But it's not only the CCP that they are protecting. Up next, I've got Douglas Murray suggesting we have never seen anything like this before. Slight shift in direction.
Douglas Murray just delivered one of the most brutally honest takedowns of Western decline you'll ever hear. And he's not holding back.
It's the same problem everywhere in the West. Our societies, broadly speaking, decided that if the world was going to move into our countries, we had to be as welcoming as possible. And one of the ways we did that was not emphasizing what makes our countries good in the first place. I said in The Strange Death of Europe 10 years ago, everything you can tell about the virtue of a country, you can tell by the direction of the footfall. Why is it, even today, that the countries in the world which people want to break into are America, the United States of America, Canada, Britain, France, Australia? It's because these countries work. It's because our countries work. It's because we have economics that work. We have a system of capitalism that works. We have home ownership. We have liberties, rights. We have institutions that have survived the test of time.
In a time when the West is crumbling under the weight of its own guilt, Murray stands as one of the few voices daring to say what everyone else is too afraid to admit. We invited the chaos, and now we're drowning in it. Murray exposes this as a kind of civilizational suicide, a slow motion collapse fueled by open borders orders, ideological indoctrination, and a relentless assault on our heroes, from Jefferson to Churchill. The same countries that once built freedom are now tearing down their monuments, erasing their history, and apologizing for their existence.
So people want to come into these places and to use that. But at the same time they do that, we have all these leftist institutions, and I have to say, it's very often the church, the NGOs, the schools, the universities, and much more. And they say, actually, no, the country you've come into, we're terrible. We have nothing going for us. I described this in my 2022 book, The War on the West. Look at the assault on all of our founders, and not just in America, but across the West. Look at the assault on our heroes. Look at the way in which the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, is presented simply as a slave owner. What else did school children get taught about Mr. Jefferson? Not very much. Look at the assault on Winston Churchill in recent years. Used to be from the radical Marxist left, now from weirdly bits of the kooky right as well. But look at the way in which our holy places as societies, and I mean that in terms of monuments, in terms of institutions, but also individuals who we revere, who we looked up to. All of these have been trashed in recent years. And the perversity of that, among other things, is why would somebody even want to integrate into a culture which tells them that the culture is rotten? Why would they? It would be nonsensical. Why is it that in America and every Western European country and Canada and so on, Muslim migration ramped up historically? After 9/11, after the first major taste the West had of it, makes no sense because we were already grappling with domestic homegrown threats 25 years ago. How did we get here? Madness.
And then comes his chilling warning. Britain is already living this decline. He describes the UK as a petri dish of national decay. Open borders, mass illegal migration, rising taxes, and a government so obsessed with moral virtue signaling that it's driving out its wealth, its confidence, and its future. Tens of thousands of millionaires have fled London. The economy is stagnant, and a suffocating sense of hopelessness hangs over the country. Nothing, Murray says, is going to get better.
It is in a decline, and it's for lots of reasons. One is the open borders immigration policy that the British government has had for years now. It's been on a scale similar to that of the Biden years, where the southern border of the United States was so completely porous until President Trump closed it. Britain still has a completely porous borders. Thousands of people illegally come in by boat every week. They're housed in hotels at enormous cost to the British taxpayer. And this, of course, causes a cultural change. I describe it as a cultural suicide in my book from about 10 years ago, The Strange Death of Europe. And so the country's got this unbelievable identity crisis caused by legal and illegal mass immigration. But then there's also the economic degradation of the country. You know, the Labour government, since it came into power a year ago now, has instituted even higher taxes. It's chased out tens of thousands of multi-millionaires. Just in the last year, it's thought that some 15,000 multi-millionaires have left London. That then has its knock-on effect. I sometimes said that the UK is a kind of petri dish experiment which Americans should look to see where you shouldn't go, things you shouldn't do. And, you know, the kind of policies that Mamdani advocates in New York, you know, the higher taxes, the giving away of allegedly free gifts, which aren't free at all because you've got to pay for them in taxation somehow. All of these things have been tried.
The jizya will have that covered, Douglas. No worries. The jizya will cover the free gifts.
In the UK, all of them have failed, and it causes this just cultural malaise, this sense that I get whenever I'm back in the UK that just nothing is going to get better. And I'm afraid that for the foreseeable future is the case. It's not like the British public have estimated their own illness incorrectly.
As Murray warns, no society can survive when it teaches newcomers and its own children that everything about it is evil. Why would anyone want to integrate into a civilization that doesn't even want to save itself? This isn't just a warning, it's a wake-up call. Because as Douglas Murray makes clear, the West isn't being conquered from without, it's collapsing from within.
And it's official tonight with Mondani winning a landslide, apparently, like 95% of the vote in New York, right? So I'm going to commit what will very soon be a crime called Islamophobia, and we'll look at that in a sec. But this is what you can expect to be normal now in New York. The training of women. This is Sharia, folks.
Yo, ما إيدين تحدث. عشر مكسيس عشر مكسيس ما أنت حسابك بين ما وضع هيري هذا الشيء دامد خرسنا دكسي قدا وفي عنها وكل هاي هذه اللي أنا أوفي عن ما أوفي عن تاي في عنك هذا ما بركنا يعني هذه محل يستاهل تاي محل يستاهل تاي فديس 10 كا اخري صعب من يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره بيج كل سي اخري سر هذين تصوب 10 كان اكو ارتين كبح هاي محل خصلي محل خصلي اخري 10
And the other ones are laughing because it's not them. You know, I don't know how Canadians are gonna. I mean, where I grew up, if there was 6 girls in a room like that, and guys started pulling this shit, he'd be on his way to the hospital. But this is what they want for Canada too, folks. Make no mistake. This is exactly what is coming here in Canada. They are teaching the jihad in the schools. They're teaching jihad in the schools. And this warning comes from like 1985.
The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion.
And now I want to read this Christopher Hitchens quote. You may remember a couple of days in Australia, I was trying to get it right. I kind of butchered it. We sort of got there, but this is the exact quote that I was referencing, the great Christopher Hitchens. Islamophobia, a word created by fascists and used by cowards to manipulate morons.
Bing, 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 Houston, we have a winner. The whores in Parliament in Canada.
And that is right. Islam is a radical religion. It does not mean that every Muslim is radical, obviously, but everywhere that Islam takes root is bad for liberal values. It is bad for freedom. It is good for autocracy and control. It's bad for women that don't want to be in a burqa. It's certainly bad for gays. It's definitely bad for Jews. Definitely bad for Christians. Definitely bad for Baha'i and Hindus and any other religious faith. That is just the truth. And by the way, it's not that great for nominal Muslims either. There are something like 40, I think it's 48, but you can fact check me. We can check it right now. How many Muslim nations are there? Tell me how it's going for minorities in any of those Muslim majority nations. And then they come to the Western nations and tell you that they are the victims while we're allowing them to be free. It's patently absurd. Here's Christopher Hitchens in 2009.
This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are not just symptoms of surrender, very often ecumenically offered to you by men of God in other robes, Christian and Jewish and smarmy ecumenical. These are the ones who hold open the gates for the barbarians. The barbarians never take a city till someone holds the gates open for them. And it's your own preachers who will do it for you, and your own multicultural authorities who will do it for you. Resist it while you can. And if you want...
That's exactly who did it to us here in Canada.
What will happen if you don't? Look and see how a cricket team in Middlesex in England had to change its name by force last week, because it was called, and had been for years, the Middlesex Crusaders. Look and see how stories about little pigs can't be taught to children in English schools anymore, lest offense be taken by the religion of peace.
I bet you the story of the three little pigs is nowhere to be found in any of our schools anymore.
Resist it while you can.
If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, your injury...
Oh, I'm not listening to the commercials. Sorry, Dave. But there is a little bit more.
You know, I want to update a quote that I use on this show all the time, and I always credit him for coming up with the original idea, Douglas Murray. One day the barbarians will be at the gate and we'll be debating what gender pronouns to call them. How about one day the barbarians will be at the gate and we'll be debating whether we're Islamophobes or not? That really is the idea here. We know this is not good. We all deep down know it, but it is going to happen. And I love how he talks about the Christian and Jewish leaders who usher this nonsense in.
It's 100% correct. And it's not all of them. The street preachers don't, but the ones that are trying to maintain their charitable status and their grants and funding, they absolutely are. And still on the theme of other. Well, but wait, there's more.
The radical leftists and the Islamists and even the Antifa anarchists are all marching side by side in solidarity. But here's the thing. This is not the epidemic. These are all symptoms of a much larger virus, and that virus is a lack, or in some cases, I think, a perversion of education.
What is it that unites the radical left and the Islamists? Take a look at this clip over here with Glenn Beck going through this topic a bit. So we'll watch this clip together and then talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Right now, we are in the midst of one of the deadliest epidemics the world has ever seen. Now, why would I say that? Well, a disturbing amount of young people today are turning towards two radical ideologies: radical leftism and political Islam. So let's look at some historical facts. Radical leftism has contributed to over 140 million deaths, whether from government-induced famine, murder, political oppression, starvation. It's a death cult, in a similar vein as ISIS or Al-Qaeda. Oh, and speaking of Islamists, in 2000, there were roughly 1.8 million Muslims in the United States. That number is now grown to 5 million, with a growth rate annually of 2%. Islam is projected to be the second largest faith in the United States in about 10 years. Now, that's not what concerns me. Here's the scary part of this. Political Islam is also rising. Hamas sympathizers taking over universities. They create their own parallel communities, and some of them right here in Texas. Texans, you better wake up. They live by their own justice system with Sharia courts, and together, the radical leftists and the Islamists, and even the Antifa anarchists, are all marching side by side in solidarity. But here's the thing. This is not the epidemic. These are all symptoms of a much larger virus, and that virus is a lack, or in some cases, I think, a perversion of education. This is why I am starting The Torch. It's coming in January. We have a very short time to fix this before it's all too late, and seeing things like this doesn't make me feel any better. Watch.
All right.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Tax the rich. Tax the rich. That was a few days ago to rally for Mamdani in New York City. And here we have the radicals like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Mamdani screeching like banshees over the virtues of socialism, all the while being backed up by the establishment Democrats like Governor Hochul. Now the crowd erupts into tax the rich, but do they not know how this ends? No. Were the people in the rally really never taught any of this in school? No, they weren't. And Mamdani, who is now in the final week of his mayoral campaign, is the perfect poster child for this dangerous blend of radical leftism and political Islam. Proper education would end this campaign right now, but instead we get glowing interviews by the media like this one.
I think any New Yorker who looks at someone getting an opportunity, who's representing communities that have not been as represented, a Muslim, a young person, a progressive, a democratic socialist, there are so many different communities that are looking to you, and this, I hate to put it on you, as a bit of a Jackie Robinson moment. And I know that probably wields some weight, but man, oh man, what an exciting opportunity.
Okay, what an exciting opportunity. Jackie Robinson, seriously? I mean, I remember that time when Jackie Robinson thought police were all controlled by the Jews. Yeah, that's Mamdani in a nutshell. Watch.
We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the idea.
This is who Jon Stewart has, wishes the best.
The marriage between the radical left and the Islamists is really rooted in a Marxist ideology. First of all, he did mention that they both don't like the Jews, which is certainly true. But the why would those on the radical left support the Islamists, who Islamists aren't exactly promoting the values and the ideas that the radical left tends to support? So radical Islam isn't exactly known for its great treatment of women, of the LGBTQ community, and so forth. And so why would the radical left, which at least claims to champion those causes, why would they get on board with the Islamists? Well, the radical left views the world from a Marxist ideology. And in that ideology, there are only two types of people in the world. There are the oppressors and the oppressed, right? Those are the only two types of things. And the rubric of how you determine who is a oppressor and who is oppressed is success or non-success. So if you are successful, doesn't matter how you got there, you got that way in that false ideology by being an oppressor. And if you are not successful, doesn't matter what choices you made, whatever the case may be, you are considered an oppressed person. And so Israel and Jewish people worldwide are viewed as successful, right? That's at least the perception that many people have. And so they got that way not because of the choices that they made and the values that they had. It's because they are the oppressors, right? They are oppressing. They've oppressed others to get to their own success. And the Palestinians and many in the Arab world are not viewed as successful, or oftentimes living in squalor. It has something to do with the choices that they've made, the governments they've elected, the lifestyle that they live. It has to do with obviously oppressed. And that's the Marxist worldview. And that's why you would have people that are on the radical left that would be in such staunch support of Islamist ideology, which Islamist ideology goes against everything that leftists claim to be fighting for, be championing. And so I think this nail is hit on the head. But when you understand what undergirds it, it helps you make sense of the world. Like, why are these people all coming together? It's not only their hatred of Jews, which is true. It is this ideology of the oppressor versus the oppressed. And when we can crush that ideology and say that ideology is false, it's a mirage, then we can really get to the core of, okay, well, what are the values that we are standing for? What is the worldview that we are championing?
So what he's basically saying there is they unite in victimhood. They're both oppressed, so they team up, the alphabet soup and all of these oppressed minority groups until they gain power, and then the useful idiots come in the right-hand door and get executed going out the left-hand door. That's why they team up together. And still in the same vein, oh, the gremlins are back. I mean, I have to reboot the stream. They don't like it when I cover this kind of stuff. Well, I wish they would hear me and know that I don't like having to cover it. I don't like what's happening. I don't like that I'm about the only guy that I can think of here in Canada that has the guts to go into depth on all of this shit. Where are my counterparts in fighting and resisting this? Oh, they're all, talking about vote harder, baby. All of them. All of them. No one will have the guts to play this clip. And as far as I know, I'm the only podcaster in Canada that has had the guts to say that there is no such thing as moderate Islamists. They are only moderate when they are few. When they are many, they are no longer moderate, because then they are whipped into what's required.
Aspect of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
There's an aspect of Islam
Mm-hmm.
that is like the scripture you just cited, that is I guess violent.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a contention there, that this idea of peaceful Muslims, moderate Muslims, and I guess I'm not sure exactly what my question here is, but
the origins of all this, how it all starts.
Like how much is this from the Quran? How much is this from Muhammad?
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, okay, it's all, you have to understand how Islamic law works, okay? So according to standard Islamic teaching amongst Sunnis, who are 90% of the Muslim world, the twin sources of authority are the Quran, which is understood to be the literal words of Allah, and then what's called the Hadith. Okay, plural, it's ahadith, but I'm going to say hadiths to anglicize it. And all they are vast volumes and volumes and volumes of what Muhammad supposedly said and did. Okay, and according to the Muslim, scientists, as they call themselves, the ulama, they rank them. There's what's called sahih, meaning it's correct, it's authentic. He did say this, and that takes on almost the same value as the Quran. Okay, and there's a lot of that. Now, based on those two things, hatred for the non-Muslim is unequivocal and continuously documented. War on them as jihad, continuously documented. Treating the non-Muslim who gets conquered as a dhimmi, which means they have to live as a second-class citizen and pay tribute, unequivocally documented. These are totally enshrined based on the Quran and the words of Muhammad. Okay, his example. And Muslims, the word Sunni, I mentioned them, the Sunni means like the example. So a Sunni is trying to follow the example of Muhammad. So Muhammad waged war on infidels, that's what we have to do as well. So it's unequivocally clear. A person will tell you that, no, Islam doesn't teach violence, etc. He's either really, really ignorant or being very, very, very deceptive. And it could be one or the other. But if you've taken the time to study them, as I have in their original languages, and that's another problem. If you look at the Quran today, they're mistranslating it intentionally. They add words that don't exist. So for example, Quran 9:29 will say, which literally says, fight the people of the book, which means Jews and Christians, until they pay tribute and feel themselves subdued. Okay, and that's the teaching that's what justifies jizya. It uses the word jizya. A lot of English now Quran translations say, fight the people of the book if they fight you first. Okay, so now it doesn't look so bad. This is again defensive war. This is just war. The original doesn't say they fight you first; it says you attack them. So there's unfortunately a lot of playing around with Islamic scriptures intended to deceive infidels. But yeah, it's that simple. That's what the two twin pillars of Islam's authority,
Right.
the Quran, Hadith, say.
And the Quran is the word of God. And
Right.
I read the Quran a few years ago, and what the difficult thing for me, apart from certain of the scriptures like the ones mentioned already, is that it says throughout it you must take this literally and you can't swear. So the idea of a sort of Islamic Reformation against this seems to be tricky. Having said that, and I'll come back to Europe, but I look around the world now, and where I have hope with relations between the Western world and the Islamic world is the leaders of, let's say, the Emirati leaders, where the signatories of the Abraham Accords, and I see, oh, actually, these are people who are taking Islamism seriously. They recognize the problem. They're even calling the Westerners out for not taking it serious enough. The Emiratis have been fantastic on this, particularly Mohammed bin Zayed. For me, the hope is that these people are interpreting the scripture in a certain way that means that there will be relations much improved from everything you've described in history. Do you think I'm right to feel this way?
No, I think there's room for optimism for a number of reasons. You know, the insurmountable hurdle is what I just described. Okay, the texts are so black and white. You know, it literally says in the Quran that if you're a Muslim, you have to hate non-Muslims. And I've watched cleric after cleric say things like, yeah, even if you're married, because Islam allows Muslim men to marry Christian women or Jews. And he'll say, yeah, you can marry them and have fun with them sexually, but you have to hate them and you have to let them know you hate them. Okay. That's how much it's so ironclad. Now, you know, and this is the whole question about what's a moderate Muslim. Okay. So yeah, I don't believe in a moderate Islam because it's just not there. It's black and white. But I do believe in moderate Muslims because humans are subjective and they can do whatever they want, right? They can believe, they can just reinterpret it their own way, they can ignore it. I mean, so I believe you have that. It exists. It's very hard to doctrinally justify it, okay, against the hardliners. That's why they always end up winning the arguments because it goes back to what the Quran says and what the Hadith says, okay? But there's all kinds of leeway and you know, ways to get around this, I suppose. But you're right. A lot of people, what they don't understand, they say we want a reformation of Islam, and what they don't get is actually something very akin to the Protestant Reformation has been happening, and it's what led to radicalism. Okay, not because Protestantism is radical, but the same methodology, and I'll explain what I'm saying. Protestantism essentially was, you know, sola scriptura. We're done with clergies and whatever. We just want the Bible. Okay, and Islam for a while has always been, the Quran and the Sunnah, but most people were illiterate Muslims, and you had to rely on the ulama and the scholars and the sheikhs, etc. And there were schools of law, and there still are, which could, you know, modify teachings certain ways or not. Well, like the Protestant Reformation, you know, since modern times, now the Quran is available on the internet, okay, and Muslims are literate and they can read Arabic. And what's happening is they're becoming more and more going back to the scriptures and not caring so much about what the schools of law, they're called madhahib, say. So it's almost like a sola scriptura mentality, but the result is the exact opposite. Because if you're a Christian who just goes by the Bible, well, you're going to turn the other cheek and you're going to love your neighbor and you're going to believe in monogamy, etc., etc. If you go strictly with what I'm talking about, the Quran and the Hadith, well, that's where all the hatred comes and the violence and basically a 7th century Bedouin mentality. I mean, that's what's captured there. So what people really want is not a reformation of Islam, which I don't think is possible. They want an enlightenment, which was basically, you know, not even caring what the scriptures say and just rising above it. And, you know, how you rationalize that, people can do whatever they want. I mean, look amongst Christians, you have all kinds of different beliefs and teachings, even though one Christian will say, no, the Bible says this. And so of course it can be done. But you're going to need, and the leaders, you have to remember, they can do what they can do. But a lot of the, you know, the people are, you know, Saudi Arabia is our good friend and ally, and I know they're also sometimes part of these accords, etc. But they're also the chief disseminators of radical Islam. Okay, they're the ones who fund this. You know, if you go to a mosque in England and you find it has radical, hateful books, it's coming from Saudi Arabia. You know, so it's, and again, we have to contend with this idea of taqiyya, Islam allowing deception of the infidel as needed. Okay, so we're in a weak phase, then we You have to, be accommodating to them and not hate them openly.
Yeah.
So all of that needs to be taken into consideration. But having said that, I think if Western powers or the non-Muslim world just dropped the act and said, look, we understand your religion, we understand it has violence, and we understand this, but we're not going to tolerate it. And, in other words, call them out and stop playing this game as if, no, it's not there. It is there. Let's confront it and let's work around it.
I suspect if you were to do that, then a lot of the problems might go away.
Yeah.
Because if you call it out and everyone's like, actually, we better behave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you keep acting, no, your religion means peace. There's nothing wrong with your religion. Okay. So you're not addressing the problem.
Well, this brings me to what's going, big scandal in my country, the grooming gang scandal, where tens of thousands of young
Rotherham,
exactly, young white underclass girls, predominantly white, there's some other Hindu girls and different groups, but mainly white, have been targeted because they are, quote, kafir. And kafir or kafar?
Kafir is singular,
Kafir.
kafar is plural.
Kafar. And it's still now contentious. You can't call it what it is because the perpetrators are predominantly Pakistani heritage grooming gangs. Even calling them a grooming gang isn't quite. It's the rape gangs is what they really are. We're just sort of unable to call out that kind of stuff. We also have with Islamist attack after Islamist attack. This is kind of across Europe. It's a problem, and this is what I kind of want to. Your whole history. I wonder how we can make it relevant to what's going on now, because you're sort of given a historical context, and Muslims are moving to Europe en masse in hugely growing Muslim populations, particularly in contrast with the declining, let's say, quote unquote, indigenous population, Christian population, and Christianity is also on the decline anyway amongst those. So I wanted your perspective on how we might find social cohesion today in Europe.
Sure. So let me give you some more context, because you're right. The history I told you, and there's still elements of it that we need to talk about to make sense of what you're discussing. So one of the earliest motifs amongst Islamic scholars, and this goes back to about the 8th and 9th centuries, was that, and I hate to put it this way, but that's how they put it, like white women want it. Okay. And white women are desirable, and they're the number. And I was telling you about the Vikings bringing slaves. They wanted fair slaves. This is a well-documented thing that goes back to Muhammad. During one campaign, the campaign against, it's called Tabuk, where he was supposed to fight the Eastern Roman empires, which would be Greeks. He actually tried to cajole men to join him by saying, "Don't you want the people of yellow?" and then he talks about the women, how beautiful they are. But yellow, I assume, means hair. A lot of people try to understand what that means. Does it mean hair, fair skin, whatever? So there's a long kind of like this almost like sadomasochistic thing of presenting white women as wanting it, and just like, okay, so now fast forward, and what you're...
Do you ladies want it? They believe you do. They believe you do.
Talking about, believe it or not, because I've looked into it very closely, and the Muslims, the Pakistanis and whatnot, they use the same exact logic, and they quote that, and they say, yeah, Islam already told us these people want it, and that's what they're for, and they like it, etc., etc. So just, something to keep in back.
It's an actual quote from Muhammad.
Yeah.
And in a hadith.
Yeah, the quote is that he basically said, don't you want the people of yellow? Like, come join me on this raid so we can get pretty blonde women, basically. Right? Okay. And but even I'm saying it starts with them, but you find iterations of this all throughout. Okay, most caliphs, people don't know this, but even amongst the Ottomans, but especially in Spain, their last caliph was something like 99% white. Why? Because every sultan would mate with white women. And he would, be half diluted. So at the very end, a lot of these sultans were essentially blonde hair and blue eyed, but they're Muslim sultans, right? So anyway, my point is this. So you bring a Muslim population that thinks this way, and you put them in England. What do you think is going to happen? And you teach women to be promiscuous or whatever, free love, etc. What's going to happen? This is going to happen, obviously.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Winston.
See them walking down the street with their blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls. Just cringing. Makes me cringe. Back to that comment that I posted here. a while back. Kafir. Do you know that's why they have so much contempt for Pete Hegseth? Because here on his bicep, he's got kafir tattooed on his bicep. I don't have any tattoos, but that one I approve of. Yeah. All right. Time for a little bit of palate cleansing. Right after I get rid of the gremlins that are back again. At least they are persistent, but they're not as persistent as I am. Right? It's going to take the people to force the government to act until such time as some of the provinces can establish their own nations. Until then, the only hope for safety for our women and children, for anybody for that matter, is to force the government to act. I'd love to see one of those 11-11-11 shutdowns on November 11th, shut down the country for 11 days. I can't do that reaching 200 or 300 people a night. And even if it's 500 or 600 people a night, I can't do that. It's got to take all of us to shut this country down and say no more. Right? So I've got a couple of messages to cleanse the palate and kind of hopefully dilute a little bit of the absurdities and the insanities going on in Chinada or China, Canadistan, whatever you want to call it. Can we do something? At this point, all of our political parties pander to them. All of our political parties are bought and paid for through their promises to nonprofits, NGOs, lobbyist groups, the people with money. They don't give a shit what you or I think. Not even Pierre. He was the first one, when COVID was officially over, to run around out there saying he's going to strip the requirements for healthcare professionals coming in from third world shitholes so that they could get faster employment in Canada. No, he didn't go to bat for the people that lost their jobs for refusing the jabs. He didn't go to bat for them and fight for them to come back into work. And these are the reasons why there's no political appetite or no belief in Pierre as a solution. Because we're not all stupid. So the only way to stop this is for the Canadian people to rise and demand change, an absolute change. And make no mistake, Pierre and Max Bernier would be the first ones there, pat backs and shake hands and smile for the camera if the whole country shut down. And he would make all of the promises to all of the people. But 60% of the population has zero belief left in them. And out of that 60% of the population, 30% across the provinces and regions don't care anymore. They're thinking bigger. They want their own damn countries because this illusion of democracy isn't cut anymore. And they've proven themselves liars and liars and liars and liars and liars and liars. Right? So without a mass peaceful uprising, and it has to be peaceful, if it's violent, it's game over. It's game over. They bring in every form of law enforcement from all around the planet to shut it down. And then it turns into Venezuela or Sri Lanka, which is exactly what they want. Because then anybody that complies in order to rebuild the system will accept the digital ID and the UBI, and they'll have access to the stores because they are good clone troopers and NPC characters. But I'm going to shut up now and hopefully give you guys something a little bit stronger to cling on to than that, right? Because right now, I'm just like you. I got no answers. I can make pretty good sense out of what's coming, but I don't see a willingness. I don't yet see the willingness. All right. This is a message to those who are awake. I haven't listened to this, so I hope it's good because I could use it too.
For far too long.
Whoop.
For far too long, you have put up with carrying around things in your life that did not actually belong to who you really are. And for far too long, you've simply accepted and told yourself that this is just the way that life is. But you've been lying to yourself. And I say this not to offend you, but because it's simply time to rise. You know it. I know it. We both do. The truth is that this is not actually the fundamental nature of life. It's the choice that you've made to carry on, to keep pressing on forward in your life as someone that is not entirely you. Wearing costumes, holding props in your hands, trying to find yourself in life by trying on different outfits and different props on the stage of life. For this is the way that most humans live. Desperately, frantically searching for themselves for most of every day that passes. Trying on different outfits. Trying on different ideas of themselves. Deciding that their current belief system isn't working for them and trading it for another. It's time to lay all of this nonsense down. This is the path of fools. And I say this not as judgment, but as a calling to the inner wisdom in you. You need not try on other outfits to try to find yourself in life. You must simply return to your original nature of who you really are, beyond the outfits, beyond the props, beneath the stories, and free from beliefs and all of this distraction that most people spend their entire lives bending over to. But you're called to greatness. I know you are. There is not a single soul witnessing this video right now that came to them on their feed that they called and they felt inside of themselves this video. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to click it. I know you're called to greatness, and so do you. But you must understand something. Greatness is not something that you strive for or reach for. Greatness is your true nature. Because who you really are, beneath and beyond all the costumes that most people spend their entire lives sorting through, who you really are, your true nature is greatness. Your true nature is unstoppable, unwavering power and presence that nothing in this world could defeat or stop. Ever. Your true self never gets any red lights in life. I want you to understand this. Red lights are that of our experience when we are living from the foolishness and we are walking of the fool's way, trying to find ourselves in this world, or even more dangerously, believing that we know who we are when we actually don't. This is not where who you really are rises. It is often in the destruction of our lives, when everything has seemingly gone wrong, when life has seemingly slapped us repeatedly over and over, that the things that we wanted didn't happen, that we find ourselves here in this moment, faced with our own reckoning, faced with our own fire, faced with the rubble of the destruction that is our current reality. But it is in this rubble that we discover the ember, the eternal spark of who we truly are. Because when everything you thought you are crumbles and falls to the ground, there is only one thing that remains standing, who you really are. Therefore, I call to you to rise. For I know that there are many things that have gone astray in your life, that you think ought to have not gone this way. But I'm telling you the truth. Everything is aligned. Everything is coming into alignment that was not previously, because it is simply time, because that is who you are, and this is where you are right now, today in this moment in your life. A major turning point. You must be who you are. In the destruction, do not reach for new costumes. Do not try to find something that you believe you're missing that will remedy and save you from this. Instead, stay here now in this moment. Do not give in to the deception that is the fool's path in life, that causes you to constantly get up and keep going somewhere else, trying to find where that is that you are looking for. You're not going to find it this way. Stay here now, in this moment. Let everything become clear to you right here, right now, because that's where it's going to become clear. Right here, right now is where your true, authentic nature will find you. It isn't always easy walking your true path in life. But most of the things that have been worth it up to this point weren't always the easy things, were they? No. It was often the fire that burned you, the destruction you faced, the hardships and the challenges of life slapping you time and time again that brought you to the core of that which you are. You know this. So why have any fear whatsoever at all in your life? When the worst things that could happen always end up being the best that could have happened. And if that's not true, who is it that's listening to this video? Rise, my friend. I call to you. Rise. It's time. Stop bending over and yielding to the distractions in this world. For there's a greatness in you. And we both know that you can't hold it back anymore. You can't. So say goodbye to that which was never yours to begin with, and be here now as the you that you've always been. Everything else is just noise. Thanks. Much love. And I look forward to seeing you in the next.
I like that. I was forged in the fire. That's why I became who I am. And I am right here, right now. And people said to me the last couple of months, you've changed. And I have, for the better, because I know where I am. And I live in no fear. I fear no man. This is what I'm here for. And it's time for a few more Davids. Of course. Last video coming up and the gremlins are back. They are not happy with Wayne's work again today. But I am. I am so grateful for you guys that are here with me in this journey that we've been on for almost 7 years now. Kind of wish I had some of his calm demeanor there. I'm a little bit more urgent, I guess. I pray for discernment daily. That's what I pray for. I don't pray for a hero. I pray for discernment. Let me sort the stupidity and the noise from the reality. What am I giving you guys? And I like to believe that it's for a higher purpose so that we can be here together right here, right now. Right? So, last clip, a mind-blowing Bible fact for everybody.
This legit is maybe the most mind-blowing Bible fact I've ever learned in my entire life. I've been waiting 6 years to get this out because it never fits in a sermon. Jesus ascended into heaven when he was standing on, in Acts chapter 1, the Mount of Olives. And he specifically said in Acts chapter 1, he said, I'm going to come in the exact same way that I go. And there are other prophecies, I'm going to read them here in a second, that specifically make it sound like it's clear when Jesus returns and he descends, he's going to descend and stand right on top of the Mount of Olives again. Let's go a layer deeper. So if you're ever there on the Mount of Olives is east of the Temple Mount. So in Ezekiel 43, it's one of the passages that Jewish people for millennia have been like, that's a messianic prophecy. Listen really close, bro. This is insane. Then the man brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing the east, and it was shut. It is to remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. And when it says has entered through it, this is prophetic foreshortening, talking about a future event as if it were in the past. This right here is the east gate as seen from when you're standing on the Mount of Olives. That's literally what you're looking at right there, east gate right there. Now, you look at it, you're like, where's the gate, bro? Because it's all bricked up. The guy's name was Sultan Suleiman. He conquered Jerusalem in 1517. The Islamic guy had fear of the future Messiah coming and this specific prophecy, and he's the dude that bricked up the east gate because he was going, I'm gonna make sure that prophecy can never get fulfilled. Okay, now check this out. Zechariah 14:3 and 5. His feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west, making a large valley. Half of the mountain shall move to the north and half of it to the south. In 1964, look this up. There's a million news stories about this. These Jewish dudes want to build a hotel on the top of the Mount of Olives. They've got to get a geological survey done before they build on the top of a historic mountain. When they do the geological survey, they discover that there is a fault line that runs right underneath the Mount of Olives. It is an east to west fault line that runs right from the top of the Mount of Olives right to the east. When Jesus returns, he'll descend on that mountain. And I think what's going to happen is the Bible talks about the earth and the heavens being shaken. I think that in fulfillment of this prophecy, that whole valley will just do this. All those stones that dude put in front of that thing are going to fall right down. And he's going to walk right through that thing, stand on that Temple Mount and be like, where are you at now? This legit is maybe the most mind-blowing.
All right. I find that interesting. Oh, wow, folks. I am so grateful for you guys. You know, your kind comments, your support, everything that you guys do to keep me going, to keep this show going, to keep it going out past the gatekeepers. We're all Davids, right? In a world full of video game giants. You know, always the big bad guy at the end of the scene before you level up. That's where we're at in life. And I have no fear. Not for myself. I don't live in fear. As a matter of fact, I've been very strongly considering getting my very first tattoo. And it might be something along the lines of, kafir, and get that tattooed right on the back of my neck so that they don't miss. Oh, Mike, glad to hear that. You guys keep me going and you guys keep me company, and I would be lost without you guys as well. So yeah, onward, forward. We cannot give up. We cannot give in. Stand in our truth. Absolutely. Live no fear. Stand in our truth. Be honest and open and true. And the truth will set us free. Right? It's really simple. It's all we have to do to live righteously. And fear no evil, for thou art with me. And the people that are missing out on this, I have nothing but empathy for them. Onward. Reminds me of my friend Brett Hawes. Another guy. Like Brett's like a brother from another mother. He stands the way I do. He feels the way I do. It's like not all of these shows are equal. I know that. Every day is a mixed bag of who knows what. It's like that Forrest Gump. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, right? But I love you guys in a very deep way. And that's what makes it all work for me. And I look forward to it. I'm nervous before every show. Am I going to get it right? Am I going to say the right thing? Who am I going to offend? Who am I going to trigger? What kind of hate mail am I going to get tomorrow? That's an everyday thing. And then a show where I just don't want to leave you guys. Good, bad, or otherwise, you're my family, right? So I've got some ideas. I want to do a couple of watch parties with you guys. But I kind of feel like when I do watch parties, they're great things that I want to share with you guys, or I want to share them with you, not like together at the same time. But I sometimes feel like if I do that, then I'm skipping the news and the things that people want to know and are interested in. But I'm going to put it out to you guys. There's a new movie released on trails. I want to share that one with you guys. There is the discussion with Joe Rogan and Chase Hughes. I really want to watch that one, and I think you guys appreciate Chase Hughes as much as I do. So I'm thinking about doing a watch party on that one. But I've also got another one that's more of a teaching and training. If everything revolves around money and the price that of our lives, the cause of our suffering is money, or corruption rather, then what if we replace the monetary system? We could do that. I mean, the paper money we used wasn't always money. Once upon a time, pieces of flint for starting your fire, little piece of rock, that used to be money. Tulips used to be money. Frankincense used to be money. Tea used to be money. Why are we slaves to monopoly money to allow this crime syndicate to maintain itself? So I've got an opportunity to share something like that with you guys. So I've got even different than barter. I'm a huge fan of barter business and barter trading and that kind of stuff, but it's not always easy to do, right? Difference in values. I see yes to Chase, especially liked years and years. Glad you guys like the watch parties. Don't want to do too many of them. I feel like I'm cheating people out of the news. Noted. Maybe that's why I've never had a tattoo, Dion. Thank you. I learned that growing up. Tree bark, sugar, salt. So I've got I've got a mechanic coming on Thursday, so I can get my vehicle back on the road again. This time it's the brakes. I knew that the last time I got my vehicle fixed that the brakes weren't going to last very long, and I was like, oh no. So it's finally able to get my pennies and shekels and time in order to get the brakes done this Thursday. So I might be in and out a little bit. The mechanic come back, do the show. So I think Thursday, day after tomorrow, we'll do a watch party on one of those items. I kind of want to do the watch party on the chemtrails thing on the new movie, a new documentary on that, because that's something that we've been watching and trying to get out for the longest time. So yeah, maybe I'll do I don't I don't know, 2 watch parties in a row, tomorrow and Thursday. Patience is not my strong suit when I have something good to share with you guys. So I'll think about it. Send me you guys this feedback. Good, bad, or otherwise. Contact at whatsupcanada.org is the way to do that. Support your favorite trusted, authentic media, guys, whoever that might be, wherever that might be. If they're giving you what you need, and you have, if they're giving you what you need, help them, whatever way that it takes. Don't support the corrupt ones, the mercenaries. If you want to help me keep going, donate at whatsupcanada.org. That's how you do that. Fight back in the commerce system with switchwithwayne.com. Get everything on Substack. This will all be out on Substack tomorrow. I'll try and get caught up on a couple that I missed from last week. But I do love you guys all from the bottom of my heart. Stay mighty, stay blessed, and Lord willing, be back here again, same time, same place tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're new here, make sure you smash that subscription button and give us a thumbs up. One of these days, we'll get over 100 thumbs up over on Rumble. That would be like a record almost. I'd love to see that. It matters. It helps the folks that are tuned in on X. Robbie, who else got in there? Robbie's been chatting a lot with us over there earlier. Professional Survivor. I like your handle. Patrick, love to see you there. Patrick, Sundown. Travis, love you guys over there too. And so stay mighty and stay blessed. Lord willing, we'll see you guys same time, same place tomorrow. I see you. Aloha.